Happy Saturday, guys. Happy Saturday. Hope you guys are having a wonderful evening so far. A good evening. Tonight we're going to be doing some Black Ops 4. Hmm. 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 Song in the playlist. I didn't put it there. There's nothing quite like having a nice pair of clean glasses, just putting them on and dictating your view. Yep, I got a little splotch there, which is the blemish on my lens that I have to go get taken care of. And you can see it just go back and forth a little bit, and it's apparent. There. Good evening, guys and gals. Alright. Oh, so tonight, more Black Ops, guys. Let's see if my config file is still the same as it was yesterday. 128 for shadows. Change on me? Yes, it's the same. 8 for overlapping transparency layers. I might change that. That might be the... change it back to 16. Same. That I wanted to play with priority too, not the priority threads, the threading. After I made them the same, it stopped changing on me. I think that was a problem. Alright guys, let's cover the Reddits real quick here, and there's some things I want to cover regarding Overwatch before we start streaming, or before I start playing games. Hey, Lid. Which Overwatch cinematic was a favorite, Reinhardt? Yeah, there's quite a few. Still not as good as the cinematics for Team Fortress, but some of them are pretty good and some of them aren't. Like Diva's cinematic, I thought was horrible. Not horrible, just wasn't very good. They didn't, like everything except the actual like video quality and the cinematography. Like the plot line is just fucking terrible. Portrayal between gender portrayals. I don't mean that I want to be sexist, like the guy has to be the mechanic sort of thing, but like she wasn't portrayed at all like her character actually is in the game. Diva being a diva. And then on top of it, they didn't focus on her struggles, her trauma. That was like 15, maybe 10 seconds out of the whole video was like her trauma, and then everything else was just on gender norms. Jerk-off contest. Reinhardt, I thought, was extremely well done. Some people say Bastion was the best one. I really think it was Reinhardt. Reinhardt's a telling story of basically someone evolving as a person, and that's very difficult to portray, very difficult to frame. And I think they did an exceptionally good job at Reinhardt. Exceptionally good job. Basically, his choices got people killed, and then he learned from it. And not only the portrayal of him as a character growing, but also portraying like the average Reinhardt playing the game and growing is like a meta character growth. Very like there's multiple different ways you could actually break him up in like who he reflects as a character and as a person if he was a person. Very telling story, extremely telling story. Because they don't do good movies. It's like a snippet. It's not the same thing, right? There was a World of Warcraft movie and it sucked dick. Just having a really good short is not the same thing as having a long movie. They could do a short, like, let's say a 30-minute movie, kind of, but I don't think they could actually do a movie. Like a 30-minute short, or maybe even a 10-minute short with multiple characters, or 15 minutes. But, like, it's a completely different format when you go to movies, and even further than that if you go to TV series and kind of the pacing and like the ground you can cover in them, character development, which is generally why TV series are better than movies, simply because movies only have 3 hours, and it's really tough to do everything you want to in 3 hours, right? Probably some of the best movies are like Ghibli films, which everyone's familiar with, like Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, Howl's Moving Castle. There's a couple more proliferate. Princess Mononoke, Howl's Moving Castle, Spirited Away are the big ones. I think there's one other I'm missing here. I should really know my Ghiblis. There's also things like I gotta know this one. I can think of it. Nausicaa, The Valley of the Wind. Anime. My Neighbor Totoro. That's another big one. What is this? Some of these I haven't even watched because they weren't that. Oh, Kiki's Delivery Service. I watched it. That was alright. Yeah, not the best in the world. The Flying Pig. Kurne Nubunta. Porco Rosso. That's alright. There's some kind of weird ones in here. Princess Mononoke. I haven't watched Ghibli's Spirited Away. Not seen this. Ghost in Shell film, isn't it? Why this is considered Ghibli. PlayStation 9 is Ghibli. This is a music video. Tales from Earthsea. I believe I saw this. Very beautifully animated. There's like this there's kind of this gap where like he basically Miyazaki stepped down and his son took over and made like What was the Dragon film? A lot of them weren't that great though after he took over. It. There's a Dragon film. Maybe they split it off in IDB. His son made it though, and it's from Studio Ghibli. This is one I haven't watched. Ponyo? Supposed to be pretty good. When you're on the cliff by the sea. Not seen that. The Howl's movie not Castle not? Here it is. Where's the dragon one? Variety. Oh. There's like a picture of a dragon with a guy with a sword. I remember what it looks like. Dragon overlooking a kid with a sword. Standing below him. It's gone. I don't know where it's moved to. I don't remember the name of it either. Modern. Find one that is dated. I don't know what they do with it, guys. A production minor, maybe? Kirk. Wonder what they did in it. XX Hulk's pretty good. The whole series of films, very weird, very good. TV series. Beach. I don't. Still, I haven't caught up with all the Evangelion movies. They make like one every 2 years or so. On right now. 2020. 2012. I guess they kind of dropped the ball. They were originally remaking the original series, and they got like 3 movies in, and that's where I stopped, and it looks like also where they stopped. Like, this year for anime has just been kind of really shitty, to be perfectly honest. There hasn't really been that many good animes that came out this year. Just in general, it's kind of been lackluster. Grave of the Fireflies, haven't watched that. That's supposed to be horribly sad. It's one of the ones I haven't watched. I don't go on my way to watch just horrible, like not horrible as in they're bad, but just depressing films because I have enough of that in my life. Not specifically like any things that happen in my life are depressing, but just like it's pretty easy for me to get depressed and I lose motivation and stuff. I think that's a lot of gamers in general, though. Yeah, this last film was from 2012, and then they stopped making them. Like 8 years. Yeah, this year for anime was just... What do we have this year for anime? I'm currently watching... I lost interest, but I'm currently watching the new... I actually stopped and I started watching Man in the High Castle, which was very good. Currently watching Steins Gate, the new Steins Gate, and it's not really that good. Steins Gate was kind of a one-trick pony, though, because once you figure out what's happening, that kind of ruins a lot of what's going on in it. And I'm about halfway through with Steins Gate, and it's kind of not that exciting. I mean, the animation's pretty good, but it's not that exciting. happened this year. This year just kind of sucks for anime. Like normally each year there's about 2 or 3 good animes, and this year we just didn't have one. I mean, there's mediocre animes. I caught up with My Hero Academia. That was a complete letdown. The series My Hero Academia, very plain Jane to begin with. Like the heroes and villains in that series, not very well thought out. They're all very, very, very basic. They're basic bitches. Like barely put thought in. It's like a doodle on a napkin sort of shit. And this season was just fucking terrible, absolutely fucking terrible. And on top of it, like the action wasn't that great either. It's kind of One Punch Man sort of shit. It's like they're following suit with One Punch Man, with just like the main character just likes punching shit, and it all ends in one punch. I mean, that's kind of what a lot of anime is, but there's build up in this series. Kind of, they don't really. It's just kind of one and done sort of deal. Is there anything actually that great this year? Dragon Ball Super finished. That's kind of meh. I kind of got a lot of random stuff to watch right now. This isn't really. It's a lot of mediocre anime. Why I haven't really recommended anything to you guys, because it's not really worth it. Darling in the Fran, fucking terrible anime. Lots of fan service, absolutely terrible anime. Can't really do it. And like when stuff's in folders, you can't organize by the date of the folder when it was made. That's difficult. Last year I had some pretty good animes. Made in Abyss was absolutely terrific. Absolutely terrific. I don't think they actually went anywhere with it this year. I don't know if there's like lack of funding or what. Anime. Let's try this. Let's try it this way. Anime. Quick filter. Search up there. That's not what I'm looking. Advanced search. Always weird that they have fetishes as a tag. Curious. And people what they want. Ended between. .1. Sure. Yeah, like that. The fast way of doing this, like I want to sort by year and then sort by I need to actually add an end date. And include stuff that's still airing. It has to hit question marks. Okay. Can't wildcard that? Alright. Let's see. Maybe the wrong format. Oh. Oh, no, maybe that's right. Let's see. Sangetsu no March Comes in Like a Lion. I watched this. This was the... Yeah, this is the one about, like, Shogi. Yeah, I think I'm actually still watching it. I don't think I even finished watching it. Very boring, very dramatic. Gintama can fucking eat a dick. I haven't even watched this one yet. Very difficult to find sources to watch this. Wanted to watch it. I haven't watched it. Gintama can eat a dick. Gintama is just parody anime, if you guys don't know. Gundam Origin, this is on my watch list. Still have not watched this yet. That's supposed to be pretty good. One of those series where they make movies instead of having just like episodes. They make movies that cover like 6 episodes. Attack on Titan Season 3? I don't think I've watched this yet. No, I haven't. Because people said that it just leaves off, and it's like this is even... They don't even finish up the season. It's like a hiatus that they're on right now. Yeah, and the next season hasn't even started yet. Like 12 episodes, not... It's kind of... Penguin Highway, this is a movie. I don't watch movies. There's My Hero Academia. The one I watched, this is about kids that go to the Antarctic. It's like a documentary. Slice of life, not very good. Violet Evergarden was a complete letdown. Lupin is based on a long running series. And I watched a couple of them, not of this specific season, but in general they weren't that great. I think I have this one. I haven't watched it though. No, I've watched this. Yeah, he finds a girl with supernatural powers, and he basically has to parent her. He's also Yakuza. This was actually pretty good. That was semi-decent. Life I haven't watched yet. Yeah, now we're already down to the 7s. This is by average too. This is like pleb rating. This is just people voting. Hero Camp, this is basically about camp. A lot of slice of life animes this year, which are kind of hard to go wrong with, but at the same time, they don't really do anything right. They're just like, oh, look at me have some hot chocolate and be cute. Zushi. Kind of the weird, the Chinese crossovers are kind of weird. Chinese web novel. Like, stories are just very, very difficult to follow. It's like they don't think things through when they write them. It's like writing from like the 70s. It just kind of hops around a lot and they don't really justify anything they do. Thrilling yet hilarious journey of attacking monsters, solving mystery, and raising children. Oh! Monosuke Ancient Magus Bride. This finished this year. This is alright. The first half of the series is probably a lot better than the second half, which took place last year. Yeah, from 2017. Once again, from 2017. The second half that took place this year, I didn't think was nearly as good. It picked up towards the end of the season, but the second season not that great. That's why I forgot about it. First season of this was very good. Magus Bride. Gate Zero, I'm currently watching. Aggressive Retsuko, I've watched that. That's kind of eh. Reminds me of Detroit Metal City, but worse. Cooking Wars, I haven't watched this yet. This is Heroes, the Galactic Empire. This is based off of a series from like the 80s. One of the few good animes, for ancient animes, that I'd suggest watching because it's very story driven. I thought it was very good, even though animation quality kind of sucks. Yeah, now we're already in the 7s now, which is basically just like shit. It's just like C grade shit. Seven Deadly Sins. Watch this. This is kind of eh. I mean, it's Seven Deadly Sins. It's a shonen. If you're into shonens, you'll enjoy it. But yeah. This year is just kind of meh. This year for anime is weird, very weird. Every single year for the decades I've been watching anime, there's at least 2 or 3 good animes that come out during that year. And this year, no, Robotech's not the good. That's the throwback. Like, people say the original Gundam's good. It wasn't. Original Robotech's good. It wasn't. You know, like, what's the series they remade? Where they combine robots. It could actually be a lot better, but they dumbed it down for Netflix. They remade it. Voltron, there we go. Voltron. Oh, no, and then the series with the guy who summons with his sword power of whatever. He looks into it. That's not very good. There's a lot of old anime just not that great. I'm a stickler. I've watched tons and tons of anime. I've watched all the good anime in existence. All the bad anime. This year has just not been... It hasn't been great. It hasn't been great at all. Current season of My Hero Academia just kind of lost everything. Like, the promising ones aren't really that great. Attack on Titan, from what I hear. I watched season 2 of Attack on Titan. That was a letdown. Current season of Attack on Titan wasn't really finished. I'm probably going to watch it anyways just to catch up. But, like, it just kind of leaves off on a cliffhanger because it wasn't really the end of the season. It's just like they take a break nowadays. They do 12 episodes, they take a break, and they do another 12 episodes instead of doing a full 24 season. Yes, it is. There's nothing that makes the original Robotech bad. Nothing can compete with nostalgia. I'm sorry, Sanjo. That's... Yeah, yep. Nothing's bad about Robotech. Modern Gundams are just... like, a good Gundam where it does battle wits, morally gray areas, where they go back and forth between political ideology, not just political, but philosophical ideology, wars of philosophy, battle of wits, where they're all fighting. Basically, no one's wrong. It's one of those things where no one's wrong, but no one's really right either, and then they go to war over it, which is basically what a lot of wars are, is just no one's really wrong. You know, and then they fight over it, and just whoever wins by beating the other person in submission is just the winner of ideology. And it's basically, Gundam does a very good job of making it concise, basically war in a pocket, which is actually one of the Gundam series, where they do a very good job of just summing up basically warfare, human warfare in general, human trials and tribulations, and things that people just fight over in general. Gundam does a very good job. Ideology, political ideology in general, does a good job of surmising it. And like, when you watch just a normal cartoon, you don't realize, like, after I started watching anime, that you just don't realize how much you lose out on. It's not just cartoons, it's TV series. She was like, because like good anime is just all plot. Like, it's just raw filler, like where they tell you the story and then they animate the story on top of it. With TV series, oftentimes they don't do a very good job of telling the story because they have to deal with the fleshy meat bags, you know, and set locations and budgets. And while there are budgets relating to anime, you can do anything with anime. It's the perfect medium for telling stories. Because you can go anywhere, you can do anything. You can be inside someone's body, you know, and you don't have to waste budget on CG. Well, you can do CG, but, you know, you don't need to waste budget on, like, hardcore CG or anything like that, or billions of dollars or millions of dollars. You know, at the end of the day, you can tell a story with a, you know, a low-end budget or with a high-end budget. Obviously, a higher-end budget is going to have much better animation quality, and that can make things look a lot better because there's some really, really nice-looking anime. However, at the end of the day, like, a lot of it comes down to story, which is why senens, which are geared towards adult audiences, are very, very good. Very, very good. I still have like a good anime. Just there's nothing that holds a candle to a good anime. Game of Thrones doesn't. Game of Thrones is probably like the best TV you can get, but in general, holding a candle to like a good anime, it just doesn't do it. Because at the end of the day, they're still limited by what their actors can do and where they can shoot and the budget, how much money they have to spend on CG. They don't need to leave up so much to your imagination. They can fucking do anything they want. Violet Jack, yes. I think you've told me about that before. Trigun. You know, when I watched Trigun, it was all right, but nowadays, nostalgia is very powerful, Sanjo. Gundam Endless Waltz, once again. So, like, a lot of nostalgia going on there, Sanjo. There's tons and tons of Gundams. Tons of Gundams. There's probably like 30 different Gundam series. Not even joking about that. And Gundam Endless Waltz was a movie, I believe, for the Gundam W series, which was a Gundam series designed to get Americans into anime. It was actually just made and not designated, but directed towards a young audience, which is just it's a bunch of just nonsensical action. There's better Gundam series than Gundam W, that's for sure. But they did the shonen thing pretty hardcore. A lot of Gundam series. Gundam Unicorn, very good. Gundam series I haven't finished watching, or I haven't started watching yet. AD, I have not watched this either. It is kind of like a mini movie series. In Galactic Hero, this version of it. Like my interest in watching anime this year has been very low as well. There's just not a lot of good stuff out. There's just nothing to watch. Like even if you put aside like good animes, good for me is really high test. If I say 2 to 3 good animes in a year, that means absolutely amazing animes, like must watch animes. But then there's also a lot of good animes too, right? There's a lot of good animes in addition to it. And this year has just been shit, absolute shit. Like the good animes this year that are worth watching are basically like, or the must watch animes this year are like good animes from last year, where you watch them, but you know there's just those animes that stand above the rest. Like Made in Abyss was just fucking phenomenal, absolutely amazing anime. Not gonna be everyone's cup of tea, much like with anything very specific. But Made in Abyss is basically about growing as it's about younger characters. So a lot about Bildung's Roman, which is basically coming of age and growing as an individual, going through life trials and coming to terms with reality and realizing the world you live in is not kind of this nice kind of sheltered place that you used to live in. Not just in a philosophical term as an ideology, but then they also it's how the anime plays out is because it goes into an abyss, it goes into a hole, and the further down they get, the more brutal and violent it gets. Not just environment, but how people treat them, and it's like good animes are very difficult to not convey, but like they just can combine so much stuff. So it like takes the idea of growing up, and not only the idea of growing up, and not just a couple bad things happen, but growing up is their journey. Not just their journey as in a philosophical journey, but also their journey as in their actual journey that they're going through in the actual anime. It's just like mind-blowing, just absolutely mind-blowing. It's just, like I said, phenomenal. Like it was like I could just tell by like the picture for it that I was gonna like it, and it did not disappoint me. Probably one of the best animes in a couple years. This one right here. Great animation style, by the way. Love it. Love the chibis. Great animation style. Occasionally throw in CG too. Like this guy. Absolutely amazing anime. Score ranked by rating. I don't think I watched the new version of this. This is on my to watch list. This is about storytelling. This is basically about radio storytelling. A lot like a slice of life anime. I never got into the Organti. This is really weird. It's like about vampires, but they have really the not metaphorical. But I'm looking for metaphysical. You on them? It's very weird. Fucking Gintama, eat a dick. Natsume's good. Game No Life was alright. My Hero Academia, not that great. My Hero Academia is, like, I don't know why people regard it as so good. Compared to, like, Bleach or, like, Naruto, barring the filler, Bleach and Naruto have really, really good shonen mechanics in it. Very good. Still not as good as Hunter x Hunter, but probably, definitely up there. This. I watched this. This was weird. The Eccentric Family. It was really weird. It's like about a beast and kind of like modern day society, and they're dealing with like a human family. Very weird. This is a complete letdown. How the fuck? Oh, maybe this is based on year. Yeah, this is from 2017. This is year. And overall, let's axe that. Yeah. So here is my hero. Your Hero of the Galactic Empire, very good. This is an old series, 1988. It didn't finish in 97, or maybe it did. I watched all of it. Yeah, they just like took breaks and they stopped making it, but it first started airing in 88. Yeah, just great, absolutely great story, absolutely great storytelling. And Mushishi is pretty good, just in general. Now they're kind of slice of life, but a weird slice of life about a mystic that deals with spirits. Yeah, don't watch stuff that Lid suggests, Sanjo. I'm just gonna throw that out there. This girl recommended a gore show called Elfen Lied and thought it was terrible. It was pretty good. I watched Elfen Lied. Back when I was younger, it was more impactful than it is now, because it was more one of those things that no one did it. Yeah. Konami, I watched... The first anime I watched was back when I was like in 4th grade on Fox Kids in the morning. This is when I was in the 90s, and it was Elfen Lied. Definitely not Elfen Lied. What was it called? Shit, I can't forget the first anime I ever watched. They stopped airing it because they thought it had too much of a negative influence. It was too violent, and they thought it had a negative influence on kids. This is back when cartoons were just supposed to be cheery, you know, derp, 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 and, you know, secretly kind of closet violent, like Tom and Jerry sort of shit. I've definitely mentioned Elfen Lied before. Maybe even when you were talking about your ultra-violent animes that you're into. I may have mentioned it off the cuff. It's like you like watching things that I don't recommend, but I mention, which is kind of weird. Like, you don't want to watch things that I recommend because they might be too good, so you watch like the kind of half-ass recommendations I make just by talking about stuff. Shit, what's the name of the anime? There's an old guy with a fucking giant sword, and he chops off... They had, like, robots. I mean, there's a lot of animes with mecha in it, but they had robot suits that they get into. It's a medieval anime with robot suits that they get into from the 90s. This big old guy. Only time it was actually happening in the anime, big old guy chops off an arm of one of them, and of course he dies horribly, like the same episode. And it was like his death knell is he just has a giant fucking claymore. And he competes with these actual mecha robots as a person, which was insane. They had flying ships. They go out like this, and they had like liquid metal that shot out of their hands. I'm probably talking to the wrong crowd here. I need some anime experts. The liquid metal that shot out of their hands. I'm thinking Scrap Princess, but I definitely know that's not the right anime. I keep thinking Evangelion. It's Ava something. Evangelion. NIDB, help me out here. Help a brother out. I can't forget this. I need to remember this. We're gonna sit here until I find the anime. Evangelion. Definitely not Evangelion. Mecha. This is a different way. Mecha. Sorted by opposite direction. 90s. Mecha. Hide synonyms. Hide synonyms. All that fucking mecha. I was a youngin' back then. I was just a fledgling. When I was younger, I loved mecha. I still like mecha. Atlabor. Bar. Yeah, I remember what the mechs look like. I remember what they're doing. Cross are really weird animes. They're literally space operas, as in they sing into battle. They're actually pretty cool. Macross F was a pretty cool anime. Kind of cheesy, but cool. Lots of Gundams. Gundams have been around since time began. Hey, there's Genocyber. Hey, Lid, look, it's rated a 6. Wow! And the weighted rating is 3.85. Not that rating is everything, but, you know, you can take that. You can take that for what it is. Sailor Moon. Not Macross. I definitely think I'm too far now. I think this is too new. What was I, like 6th grade, 4th grade is Fox. What was your grade? Your grade was like plus 6 years. Like 11. Would have been like 95. But I think I'm past where I should be. Escaflowne! There it is. Escaflowne. That's what it was. I think this is the newer version, too. Oh. 96. Yep, Escaflowne. This is the movie, which is really weird. Very violent, too. Different take on reality. I watched that. Escaflowne. People still watching these. Here from 2018. All-time classic. The best animes ever made. I wouldn't agree with that. So anyways, this is an anime I watched back when I was in grade school. First anime I ever watched. They only aired 10 episodes of it on Fox Saturday, Kids Saturday in the morning. It was on at like 6 in the morning. It's like early time slot too, not like the normal time slots. But I woke up every day to fucking watch this, and they only showed 10 episodes of it. Not even the full season. Not even half the season, like 12 episodes. They showed like 10 episodes or 8 episodes, and then they canceled it. I think because of complaints from parents, because it was a more violent anime. But anyways, first anime I ever saw, and then after that, I didn't see anime probably until I babysat when I was in junior high. Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball was on Cartoon Network, and I didn't have cable when I was younger. And it was when I was in junior high, probably seventh, eighth grade. I watched Dragon Ball for the first time, and I really loved anime. And I thought it was fucking the cat's meow because there wasn't anything else on. There wasn't anything else for me to watch. Like cartoons. Just after you watch anime, just like cartoons don't cut it anymore. They really don't, because there's just a lot of everything in it, just like life in like anime that they don't give you in cartoons. You know, watching Tom and Jerry just do the same stupid shit, and they don't act like people. Like, to a certain extent, Tom and Jerry is probably one of the better cartoons when I was younger. But after you just watch that, like, then I started watching Sailor Moon because there wasn't anything else on. Like, not even joking, I watched Sailor Moon because there wasn't anything else on. And actually, some of the newer Sailor Moons get pretty brutal. They kind of take a ugly twist on magical girls, but it's not as bad as like Madoka. Madoka's that's pretty violent. That's pretty fucking violent. Like, they sell you on the cute magical girl thing, and it's not the way that series goes at all. But anyways, then I was like, they stopped airing it. Like, Dragon Ball just stopped airing. Dragon Ball Z, they didn't start with Dragon Ball either. They started with Dragon Ball Z, and then they just stopped airing it, and that was very disappointing. And then Sci-Fi they used to do Saturday Anime, which is actually popular nowadays. They did Saturday Anime, and they would show anime movies late night. We're talking 11 p.m. to 5 in the morning slots, and I actually stayed up to this when I was younger because they'd show anime movies, really old 80s anime movies. I loved it. Like Saturday Anime on Sci-Fi Channel before it was Sci-Fi, before they changed to Sci-Fi, and before it was actually cool to show anime, and like they had like, you know, GTV or whatever it is now, or used to be. They'd show anime, and they had like anime nights, and now they have anime channels and everything, and of course you can find anime everywhere. But I watched that, and then Sci-Fi Channel stopped doing that. They stopped airing anime, which was disappointing. And then when I started getting into junior or into high school, they started airing Dragon Ball once again on Cartoon Network, and then they stopped. Like, they couldn't get the same voice actors. They couldn't get voice actors, so they stopped. I don't know if you guys remember Dragon Ball Z, but they changed voice actors about halfway through the Frieza saga. Like, they just stopped airing it because they didn't dub any more episodes, and they reran the Frieza saga over and over. They reran the Frieza saga for like 3 years. I don't know if you guys remember that. Like 3 fucking years of reruns of the same Dragon Ball Z, just milking the shit out of that. And they didn't make any new. It felt like 3 years, maybe it was like 2. It took them a long time to get new episodes though. But then in like the early years of high school is when I started appropriating anime through my friend called Napster. Not sure if you guys ever heard of Napster, but you could find a lot of different things on Napster. Or Napster took it up the ass with the steel dragon dildo. Napster, yeah. There's bits and pieces, like ANIDB is pretty good. Like, they show you like groups and stuff that sub stuff, and if you sign up for an account, you can actually see what episodes are subbed. You can't get it off this website. They don't actually host content on ANIDB, but it allows you to actually see like the community for subbing, the subbing community, and then on top of it, you know, it makes it easier to pick out episodes. I didn't have this when I was younger. I didn't have anything like ANIDB. ANIDB has been around for a really long time, which is why one of the reasons I still use it, because it's a great website. This is probably one of the best, most complete websites for anime, barring anything from Japan, because I can't read Japanese and I don't know if it exists, and it might, because Japan has fucking everything. But this is probably one of the most complete websites for anime ratings, finding categories. It is really active too. Like, it has a long-term community that has just been around forever on it, and they rate stuff. They add things like, you know, all these tags are very, very important for finding animes like this one, which we wouldn't have found if it wasn't under a mecha tag. But there's a lot of newer websites that basically do the same thing that ANIDB does that the new kids use. But this is OG. This is one of the original websites. Still extremely functional. Still a great website. Especially if you just want to find stuff to watch. It's like A+, absolutely A+ for finding stuff to watch, finding, like, everything's up to date here. They don't miss stuff. They don't usually miss stuff. And, like, because because online people are assholes. They do a really good job of correcting stuff that's wrong on this website, because they just go back and change stuff constantly. But then they also have discussions too, comments, troll posts and stuff like that, and then they have forums and whatnot. But like extremely informative website. 100% love this website, which is why I use it. And if the new kids are like using like myanime.com or something, yeah, no, you can do the same thing on here. Only it's a lot better. And I'm not paid in any way, shape, or form. I've just been a part of A9DB for years, basically since I started watching anime. And the reason it still exists, like it's existed on community donations, no ads, and just community donations for decades. That's a telling sign in and of itself. Like they have been around forever, and they do a really good job, and it's run by the community, and they don't put ads on their website, and it's a miracle, absolute miracle, that they can still exist. Ronin Warriors, I watched Ronin Warriors back in the days. It was alright. That was one of those things that seemed pretty cool when you're younger. Like I said, I've watched every good anime in most every good anime in existence, and then some that aren't. This is actually similar anime. I don't know how this is remotely similar to Escaflowne, but Juni Kokoi is one of my top 10 favorite animes in existence. It's a fantasy, a telling story about a girl that just gets whisked into a land that's war-torn land, and she basically becomes a princess to a country that has no hair. And it's an anime about her, and she grows up. It's also about there's other storylines mixed in with it. It's not just one character, but they all intermingle with each other. Like, they all come together, which is usually a sign of a very, very well thought out story. It gets kind of, towards the end, it kind of falls apart a little bit. It becomes more chaotic in storytelling because they just kind of jump around to different storylines. And they never really finish the story either. Like, this is based off 45 episodes. They're originally going to have 75 or something like that, and they just never finished them. And it's based off, it's like, this is actually ripe for a remake, to be perfectly honest. They could definitely remake the shit out of this anime. But this is actually probably one of my favorites. I don't tend to pick favorites because there's really good anime. There's a lot of really good anime, but this is one of my favorite animes. I don't know what, when you say it's cool that the site exists, what you don't know about is it expensive? Yeah, there's a lot of community-run websites that just fall to the wayside because they don't have support. It's fun and games for everyone to write on the forums and go, oh yeah, we support the website. It's another thing when the people actually have to throw money at it. It's cool because it's managed to not only have an active community, but also have the monetary support in order to still be around today. That's a telling sign of a lot of support and like dedication to the cause. Throwing money at it, people can say whatever they want, but when they start throwing money at stuff, that's when you start setting things apart from everything else. It's on I don't think it's changed at all, because this year didn't really have that great of anime. I haven't been updating this in like forever. I haven't updated this in forever, but if you scroll down here, this hasn't been updated in forever either. Like I said, there just isn't a whole lot that actually has been worth watching, to be perfectly honest. These right here are the list. This is the watch list right here. And Code Geass, first season. Higashi no Eden, that's pretty terrible. Kaiba, Detroit Metal City. It's a smorgasbord too. It's not just everything's the same. Like, Detroit Metal City's a comedy. Cross F is a space opera I talked about earlier. Eureka 7. If you guys have watched Cartoon Network, you probably watched that. Shonen. Gurren Lagann. A lot of people know that. That made its way onto Twitch as far as recommendations by streamers. People jerked off about that maybe 2 years ago, but I watched it before that happened. I've been on Twitch for 6 years. Gundam Unicorn, Kimura Sojo Urine is very good. Second Raid, A Full Metal Panic, not the first one. Very good. There's a lot of weirdos on here. Katanagari. One of the best animated animes in existence, but it's not. It's stylized, so it's not like super realism. But very, very cool anime. just like Kaiba, also very stylized. It looks like a cartoon, but they just pull the stops out when it comes to action. Very cool anime. Like a lot of weird, very weird animes, so don't expect it just to be super realism or whatever. It's not like just all Naruto stuff. This isn't all shonens. Original Steins Gate's on there. Shinsekai Yori, very good. Fate Zero, very good. Fate Stay Night, the new one, not the old one, very good. Mushishi, very good. Bakano, very good. Suzy no Gargantia, that's the only one that I'd probably say doesn't really live up to the other animes on this list right now. Yoka Magica. Made in Abyss, that made it on the list. I made sure to put this on here, right down here at the bottom. A+. Yeah, all these animes are really good. This is the only one that's kind of a weirdo. Reason I like this one is specifically because of the way it is a clash of not ideology, but like not clash of ideology, but rather it's like someone from the future coming back and helping cavemen, but not really. And the people in the future have a different way of approaching problems than people in the past do. Where in the future, ideology is shifted just to extremes, where you just execute people you have problems with, because basically you grew up around war. It takes a little bit to understand why this recommendation is on the list here, but I think if you are in the right mindset, you'll be able to appreciate where I'm coming from with that. But it's basically someone from the future who gets teleported back. I don't think he got teleported in time. He landed on it's in the current time, like it's in the current world. But if you imagine a space alien, current U.S., current everything in the world. Relative, it's more like Waterworld though. But imagine someone from the future, not the future. Imagine someone with super advanced alien technology landing on our planet, and then trying to help us cope with problems that we're having. But like I said, it's more like Waterworld, where the world has kind of fallen apart and it's become a dystopia. It's become kind of like, you know, water's everywhere basically, and then there's bandits and pirates and stuff. But you watch it, you'll get what I'm talking about with it. And also very well animated. Full Metal Panic, there's a bunch of different series too. There's a new one I still haven't watched. Full Metal Panic Second Raid is a very particular one. It's like Gundam Unicorn. There's a bunch of them, but this is a very specific arc in the Gundam or Full Metal Panic universe, which I thought was very well done. It's a mix of comedy, mixed with tragedy, mixed with character development. I'm a huge fan of character development. Basically, what Gurren Lagann is a very good job of mixing basically all the genres together into kind of this nice tasty soup, this nice stew of just everything. And it includes things like shonens, which is actually, you know, it's kind of interesting that I don't have Hunter x Hunter on here. I never put that on here. That's really weird. I consider Hunter x Hunter to be one of the best. One of the best shonens in existence. Could be that last time I updated this wasn't still airing. I watched the original Hunter x Hunter back when it aired, and then I watched the new one. I should change this. This said, I'm very, very particular about my animes. You got me on anime, Lid. Yeah, pretty much every anime on this list deserves to be here in some way, shape, or form. Gashi no Eden, oh, Prince of... That's another really weird one. The guy loses his memory and basically tasked with becoming basically the next Emperor of Japan or something like that. Not just the Emperor of Japan, like kind of like a world body, like New World Order sort of shit. With other candidates. Yeah. All the stuff here. You could literally just go down this list and start watching this. Everything on here deserves to be here. Mononoke. All the Mononokes are good. Yeah, this is not a must-watch anime. This just exists here. This, like, the last time I updated this and I wrote a review for this is back in, like, was it One Punch Man came out in like 17, didn't it? This is like one of the last reviews I wrote. I still added animes to watch here. This isn't a must-watch list. This is just a list of anime to watch. This is the must-watch list right here. It was good. It's a shonen. It's very one-trick pony. Not to play on the word, but yeah. Like the interesting thing about this anime was actually it's better if you think about the anime and you just remove Saitama, which is this guy. If you take him out of this anime, like it's actually pretty good. But if you include him, he's a gimmick, absolute gimmick. Like, this guy, the side character, is actually a lot more fun to watch over the course of the anime than it was Gintama. Not Gintama... This is his name. It wasn't Gintama. Gintama is the anime. Anyways, this main character guy who one punches literally everything, spoiler. Very, very... Like, everything about this anime except for him is actually pretty good. Like, he actually made the anime worse. I talked about that a bit. I think even in this, you literally read the review here. It's still very pertinent. But he actually ruins the anime. Like, this side character and his development over the course of the series is actually pretty good. Animation quality is top-notch. Yes, it is. It is very top-notch. Which is kind of like... So, after One Punch Man came out, Dragon Ball Super came out, and I actually felt sad because I thought with Dragon Ball Super they're going to improve the animation quality, and they didn't. They upped it a little bit, but it's still not. It's not One Punch Man. If they did One Punch Man treatment, Dragon Ball Super, like it wouldn't you wouldn't even be talking about One Punch Man because One Punch Man a lot of the series had to do with the animation quality. No. The original Brawley movies, some of the Dragon Ball movies, like back in the day when Dragon Ball Z came out, like the movies had better animation quality, but even then, it's not really that good. And I think Brawley, is like it's a live action. Stay away from live actions. I don't think there's been a single good live action film ever, and that's a pretty rare thing. Usually, there's an outlier, but there isn't. So. Yeah, no, live actions. Yeah. Live actions are for the fans. Just like movies after a series comes out, if they make a movie, it's usually for the fans. That's why you can usually skip movies and OVAs after a series comes out, because most of the time they aren't very good and they're just for the fans. Sometimes they are very good, like if you have standalone OVAs like the Gundam series, like Unicorn I talked about, but those are very particular. However, like even then, it's not guaranteed to be good. Like Hellsing, the new Hellsing series was pretty fucking bad. So, Ultra Gore, it's basically just a bunch of Ultra Gore. You're exactly what you're looking for, Lid. Desert Punk, yeah, Desert Punk's funny if you watch it with subtitles. like, yeah, that's I remember that being just an absolutely hilarious, very perverted, very perverted, but absolutely fucking hilarious anime. It might even be considered a hentai. Dirt Punk. I think it had sex in it. I'm not sure. Absolutely perverted, but hilarious anime. Huh. It's 7.5. Very old too. 05. Yeah, it was absolutely just a fucking hilarious. A lot of so the thing with fan service is generally that takes away from rating because people won't appreciate good fan service. Gurren Lagann had good fan service in it, regardless of the fact that it was actually like just absolutely horribly, brutally emotional anime. Had a lot of fan service and weird things in like that. This one's definitely focused more on fan service. Honestly, like this is probably one of those ones that doesn't deserve the low rating it has. I wouldn't say it's as good as like really well thought out animes, but it was pretty good. It was hilarious in that he does really fucking stupid shit, and it comes out just in a hilarious way. Yeah, 7.5 is like B grade anime. It's not. It's not. It's watchable. But cream of the crop is generally A plus, 8 plus, not A plus, 8 plus, 8, 8 as in the number 8 plus. Generally speaking, but sometimes you get overlapped because it's just a rating done by just people. Sometimes you get weirdos that don't fall into the right category. I got a couple on my list, I think, that do that in my must-watch anime list. Made in Abyss is up there now. I think it was rated lower before. And, like, everyone watches it and they realize it's good and their friends talk about it and they talk about why it's good. Are any of these... Yeah. Most of these are 8s. Yeah, this is like a C or a B grade anime. This is when you start getting down to the 7s, some of them are watchable and some of them aren't. Most of them are watchable. Oh, you trying to get us back on topic, Lid? You sidetracked me. You know I have a problem with anime, and you tell me to talk about anime, and they're like, oh, go talk about Overwatch now, which you're originally going to do at the beginning of the stream. But no, you started an anime conversation with me. Now you want to talk about Overwatch, Lid. This is what you reap what you sow. This is what you get. Just 1 second, guys. Yeah, if you want to watch anime, Crunchyroll is probably the best legal place to watch anime. I don't condone illegally downloading things. There are plenty of places available to download anime illegally. But Crunchyroll, you pay for a subscription and you just can watch pretty much anything on Crunchyroll. Like, if you look at this is a link here, you click it and it goes to Crunchyroll. Yeah, Crunchyroll is a lot of anime. So if you like paying for, like, Netflix... Oh, I guess it doesn't exist on Crunchyroll anymore. Desert Punk. Oh, no, it's still here. Normally, like, you can click on stuff... Gone. Sometimes they, like, you know, their contracts expire or whatever, and then they lose it. But normally you can just click on stuff on here, and it'll actually take you to the anime page. It's actually pretty cool. Let's do, like, for instance, Juni Kokoi. Yeah. So sometimes even the best anime is not on. It's very difficult to find, like, older anime. I never actually download anime, but if I were to download anime, I would keep all of it, and I'd have something like a fucking RAID 5 array, with anime on it, like 16 terabytes of anime. Not that I do anything like that, but I'd have a RAID array with 16 terabytes of anime on it. Not specifically currently have 16, but I have a RAID array, or I have a RAID 5. It just happens to be that I have a RAID 5 array, you know, with 16 terabytes. Not that anime's on it or anything. But anyways, so one of the horrible things that may have happened to a friend was when he was younger, he used to collect a lot of older anime. And then, like, the older people get, guys, the harder it is to actually get classics. And then you lose classics, and they go out of print, and then you can't actually find them anymore. And when you do find them, they're gone. So my friend may have downloaded a lot of old classic anime, and he had a lot of it, and over the years he compiled it, and then he might have made a RAID 5 array and got a lot of original work over the course, you know, because hard drives die, and it actually was one of his things that he did when he was younger, was he collected anime, basically. He bought hard drives with his free money. Story of a friend, by the way, because, you know, there's no way I condone illegally downloading things. But he collected his money over the course of lawn mowings and things he was doing when he was growing up. And he had a bunch of hard drives, you know, threw them into a computer case and just kept getting more and more hard drives with RAID. He found out about storage controllers and things like that, so he just had this monstrosity abomination of a computer especially back in the day. Hard drives are very tough to get. Like, there is this trade-off where between video and hard drive space, and they often intersected where you just run out of space just by like just with video content, because otherwise things look like shit. Back before H.264 and even after H.264, just stuff will look like shit, even after ripping it. Hmm. Anyways, and over the years, he lost some hard drives because hard drives go bad. He loses anime, and then he re-downloaded anime. My friend, obviously, re-downloaded anime and kept updating it, kept up to date. You know, may have kept some H manga on there too. A lot of out of print H manga that's very difficult to find. And over the years, kept getting it. You know, kept updating it, getting more hard drives, and finally he bought a RAID 5 controller because he thought, you know, this sucks that I have to keep replacing my hard drives. And then RAID 5 obviously being you can have 3 or more hard drives, and if one fails, you still keep your data. Anyways, so he invested in a RAID 5 controller, which is really expensive. He spent about $800 when he had like literally no money. More than that, like $900 on both a RAID controller off eBay and then some brand new hard drives. And he kept those in there, and he kept them up to date, and occasionally a hard drive would fail and he'd replace it. But one year a hard drive failed and he didn't replace the hard drive. And his 4 terabyte, which is big back then, is like 2010, his 4 terabyte hard drive array with one dead drive, because RAID 5 still works with one dead drive, he didn't replace it right away. Because he's like, why would I do that? It still works fine with RAID 5 and I don't really have that much money right now. So he just left it. He left the drive in there. And then, you know, a couple months later, well past when he should have been running it, a couple months later, he lost another hard drive. And when you lose 2 hard drives out of a RAID 5 array, you lose all your data. And that's extremely depressing when basically you have your life. It's like losing your desktop PC and losing all your data on it. Very depressing. He was very depressed about that because he lost basically not only anime that you know he just watched, but he also lost anime that no longer you could find. So anime he could give to his friends because he has friends that watch anime. Anime that he could give to his friends. He lost that, and that made him very sad. Then eventually he just bought, you know, he got a more modern RAID 5 controller. Well, actually, this is after it. He bought more modern RAID controller, and then 4 terabyte 4 terabyte drives. So basically he has like 12, no, they were 8 terabytes, 6 terabytes. Yeah, no. It was 4 6 terabyte drives. So he had a RAID 5 controller, modern RAID 5 controller with basically 16 terabytes of writable space. And now everything is right with the world again. However, the downside being once you lose data, it's gone. The data is gone, and as such, he lost anime that basically you can't get anymore. And it's not just downloading it. It's not just that he can't find it while he's downloading it, but rather this anime just isn't in print anymore. And in order to actually get this, like, he would actually have to buy it off eBay, buy DVDs off eBay, and then rip them, which is also very difficult to do. RAID 5 is a type of redundancy scheme for computers that helps you maintain your data. You can put a bunch of hard drives together, and then if one dies, you still keep your data. Basically what it comes down. Like a Game Shark for your hard drives? No. Yeah, not Sam, obviously. This happened to someone else, so. Because I wouldn't do anything illegal, and there's no way that I'd actually say anything incriminating. So. But anyways, something like that can really suck. If you lose your data, it really sucks. Especially with anime, as I mentioned, stuff goes out of print, and then you also, like, the rips don't exist anymore for it, which is kind of sad. So something like this, you can't even find it on Crunchyroll. No, it's like having a hard drive, a hard drive, a hard drive, and a hard drive, and then it spreads the data out all over them. It's kind of difficult to figure out if you don't have a technical understanding of it. It basically takes a file and breaks it up into bits, and then one bit goes onto each hard drive. And it builds in redundancy, meaning that there's bits from this drive on these other 3, 4, 5, however many drives that you have. There's bits from this one drive across multiple drives. So if this drive dies, you lose some space, theoretical space. You lose a space here. But if this drive dies, you can have a dead drive and then rebuild the array with a new drive from the bits, the redundant material built into the other hard drives. And then you have a working ecosystem again. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's not, data redundancy isn't just about data redundancy isn't just about movies. If you have things like the big one that a lot of people learn in college is backing up your papers. That's a big one. Because if you lose that, that's a lot of fucking work. There are horror stories about people losing their dissertations. That's months of work, months. They spill a soda on it. They drop their laptop. That's something you go. If I lost something important like that, I'd totally send my hard drive in, because there is data. There are places that will recover your data. It's just insanely expensive. We're talking thousands of dollars. But if you're talking about a dissertation, I would like a text document. I would definitely make money to do that. A lot of people know you can do data recovery though, and not all data is recoverable. But I mean, Google, especially nowadays with cloud storage, that's not as common, because people can store something on like the cloud, and they have all sorts of data redundancy over there. Hmm. No one cares about your hard drives of anime. I obviously don't have hard drives of anime, Sanjo. That would be illegal. It's like you have a drug lab or something. The amount of time you can actually go away for stuff like that is actually pretty insane, even if you don't share it. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Also very weird. You just have. I just threw that plug in there about how you have artwork hanging on people's walls lid. Yeah, you're some like Picasso that I don't know about. I guess artists are all very weird, so I guess it wouldn't strike me if you're just fucking Picasso or something, just based on your remarks you make, like you're on acid constantly or something. Peculiar individual. But anyways, what were we really talking about here? We were going to talk about game development, and then Lid got me onto anime. A little bit of develops, yeah. This is not only is it rated high, but this is a lot of votes. This is a lot of people together conveying that this anime is actually pretty good, which it is, and even then review ratings also confirm that very good anime. It's not shonen, it's not action packed, and the animation is old. This would be really nice if they remade this. This is definitely an anime, a series that should be remade. It's really old too, 2003. Very old anime. Oh, there's another one. Komodo Soju Aaron. Oh. Actually about griffins too. That might be a spoiler. Oh. This is about a woman who is drawn into war between kingdoms. Yeah, Her lives with her mother, small village. Aki, she's loves animals. They're basically like druids. Not really. They don't turn into animals or anything. But rather, they communicate with animals. And like magic's outlawed. Yeah, like look at this. Even the stuff I'm recommending, you can't just find on Crunchyroll. Yeah. 2009. Fortunate. Like I said, like stuff like this, like it'd actually be nice if like I could like I could inject this into your guys' brains, because like that's the way I feel about anime. Is just like good anime, well-made anime. Actually, just like I wouldn't be who I am today if I didn't watch anime. And I don't mean that as in shonens watching Naruto jump around, throw his Rasen gun at people. The takeaways, the bits and pieces from anime are actually pretty. Like people dump their heart and soul into a story, and animation is just the canvas. It's just the method, not the method, mode. Just the tool they use to convey their story. Let's just put that. It's a tool they use to convey their story, and animation works the best to just convey a raw story to someone. And just like if I had an alternate ego, or not alternate ego, if I had a clone, I'd have him like I could just clone and pop people out, and then they go back into my body. That sounds really weird. They turn back into me like Naruto, and I gain their knowledge. I'd have at least a couple clones reading books, because books are insane, but they take too much time to read. They absolutely take too much time to read. So like anime is kind of like the best in between, and the stories that anime can tell are just absolutely amazing. And it's not just always fantasy either. Sometimes like you can take bits and pieces, little nuggets of truth away from stuff of how like society deals with how society is portrayed in anime, and like the way they deal with each other, and the way they deal with problems and interact, especially Gundam series, the way they interact is just absolutely insane. Like if I could actually take anime and inject it into my viewers that watch my channel and make people basically better, I would definitely do that. But a lot of people like in real life don't like anime. They don't like the fact that they're watching people with big eyes, or like they can't get that suspension of disbelief. My brother, for instance, even though he likes shows that are complex, and my older brother, he likes complex shows and battle of wits, everything I talked about with Gundam. Even though he enjoys like Game of Thrones sort of stuff, like he enjoys those intricate plot lines with like things don't always turn out the way that you want them to. Sometimes there's bits of brutal reality that's kind of influence him. Like he can't handle watching anime, which is actually pretty disappointing, because like everything that you enjoy from a complex story you can find in a good anime. And it's just like a good anime is just levels above normal TV, because you don't have to deal with fucking fleshy meatbags trying to do what you want them to, nor do you have to. You're limited by your set location and stuff like that. And like like 90% of the episodes take place in the same fucking room. Once you guys start to figure that about set design, is like it's really expensive to make new areas and go places, and then everything starts to happen in the same location, and then you realize how many times like the same location is used in a series. Like it very much takes away from like the allure and your ability to actually watch the story, because like stuff doesn't change. It always happens in the same house, in the same room. doing the same thing. That's why sitcoms are so popular, not just with people, but rather with companies, because they're so fucking cheap to make. You have like people in Seinfeld that go to the same bar for 20 same coffee shop for 20 years, just like friends, over and over and over again. You're just kind of like, I hate sitcoms. I so fucking hate sitcoms. People, I almost want to say I hate people that watch sitcoms too. Like it's that bad. Like it's someone that can just watch the same show over and over again. You know, obviously highly subjective, but like people that can watch the same show over and over and over again and still find enjoyment in it. Like they don't want things to ever change, so they can just keep doing them over again. And well, it can be said, you know, like life is like a wheel. You know, everything keeps repeating itself over and over again. Life does that, especially if you just like start like family life or something, where you just, you know, go to work, come home, deal with your family, go to bed, wake up, do the same thing over and over again. Like I like kind of find it offensive that people can slip into that kind of normality in their life and not find it grating eventually, especially like a sitcom, just watching the same sitcom like Friends, every episode of Friends ever. There's like a bajillion episodes of Friends. Episodes of Friends. Friends still going on? No. 236 episodes. That's not actually that many. It's not a sitcom though, but like One Piece has like a bajillion episodes. Dragon Ball Z had a bajillion episodes. There's some animes that have a lot of episodes in them, but stuff changes in animes like that. They go different places. They have different scenery changes. It's not the same shit like on repeat. Like you could watch one season, it's basically the same as like, you know, season 10. It's not really. I'm sure they had to change a cast or whatever. I would have liked to see it set ablaze. Yeah, you're definitely an artist, Lid. We watched Orange is the New Black. Yes. You watched that too. I watched Orange is the New Black. You know, Orange is the New Black got canceled in case you guys missed that. Um, However, it kind of petered down later, turned into kind of a sitcom, but like it changes, more involved than a normal sitcom. Definitely would not say Orange is the New Black because it's like stellar TV. I'm a stickler though. Okay, we probably should actually. I don't know how much gameplay I'm gonna get in here. We've been kind of talking about just random shit now. Let's cover the Reddits, guys, and then we'll actually get some gameplay in here. Clockwork Orange, yes, I have watched that. Ultraviolence, I'm sure. Yeah, obviously up your alley. I've watched Clockwork Orange. I think pretty much everyone has. Anyone that goes through college ends up watching that. Can we stop random suggestions? Use the suggestions, literally everyone. Yeah, what was the one out last night that we saw? I thought it was hilarious because it was like common sense. I don't remember. It was just absolutely common sense and something they're already working on. Display the new tabs on these signs. Oh, news tabs. No. That ruins immersion. When players land and start to look like gliding on their end, but they're able to shoot. So I heard through a couple stream channels that they're removing gliding. Some players look like they're all still gliding, but on their end they're able to shoot. You know, the funny thing about it is it's a visual glitch with lag compensation, and on their end, they're already landed. They're already landed, and they're shooting at you. This is just an example of how low latency fucks you. Actually, this guy's a ping like 4. So this guy that he's facing actually could have just a high ping. Sometimes it's weird. Sometimes people with low pings do shit like this, and sometimes people with high pings do shit like this, which is why ping normalization needs to happen, and not just Fortnite, but every fucking video game in existence. Because you can't... This guy has... His ping of 2 is obviously wrong. This guy probably has like a ping of 8. Like an actual ping of 8. You guys can't see this, but ping normalization needs to happen. It needs to be a thing. People need, like, someone needs to make a white paper on it and why it needs to be done, and talk about it. Just because even if you have a perfect world with perfect registration, it just sometimes just usually favors people with low pings. Sometimes it fucks people with low pings, but usually it favors them. Generally speaking, if you have a normal playing field, that's for the best, regardless of whether or not it's a perfect playing field. You want to have something that's normalized. Normalizing pings, having everyone end up at an average of a couple quartiles, which I've mentioned a couple different times, like the middle 2 quartiles. Have everyone be at the average ping or higher. Is very important for maintaining consistency in gameplay. Because you have, this guy could be a Euro player too. The reason it looks so whack is because he's been playing from Europe or something with 140 ms ping, and then you got to ping someone with a ping at 8, and it's just like movement. You know, the more you dial up. Good evening, Slane. The more you dial up, like tick rate and responsiveness of your game and the fast pace of the game, the more it relies on like having good and normal. I keep saying normalized, good latency, and you don't always get that because we all exist in different parts of the world, and they'll never change. Unless some brand new form of, like, light transmission comes out, which is basically what fiber is anyways, and even with fiber, like, you know, routers just don't route fast enough, and you still get, like, delays the further you go away. So, like, it's impossible, even at the speed of light, you know, I'd arrive at, like, fucking London in less than a millisecond. However, it's not the way the tubes of the internet work, so. Normalized ping's very important. And they'll always be very important because we will never exist in a perfect world. And even if you have great netcode, you need to have pings that are consistent because you can't deal with just... It's impossible to have a consistent experience without having pings that are consistent, regardless of how good your netcode is. In Fortnite, like, one of the reasons I stopped playing it is because, obviously, once again, going on the rant, low ping advantage in Fortnite is absolutely fucking out of this world. There are occasions that you'll get fucked with a low ping. However, majority of the time you'll always end up ahead, which is why basically Twitch is sorted by Fortnite, or by latency on Fortnite, so. Moving on. Pop Punk game mode. Sure. Protesting the glider redeploy. This is a take on the political movement in sports where they kneel. Yeah. Glider redeploy is broken, as I mentioned, and if they take it out, they don't need to take out glider redeploy. It just there needs to be a mechanic for glider redeploy. It needs to be an item you pick up. It needs to be something that you use, like an actual mechanic, not just something that you just get for free. Because fall damage is a very important part of the game, and it should actually be part of the game. They don't need to completely remove it. Like, you don't need to always jump to extremes. Blizzard loves going to extremes, and we don't need to do that. You just need to balance things, and balance sometimes involves increments, not just on or off, not just binary, right? So if you want to balance something, you kind of, you know, deal a little with it. You don't just fucking give a gun like 100% accuracy and then just lose 20% DPS on it like the AK endgame, because then everyone just fucking uses it. And something like the assault rifle basically has no purpose. Just like if you add an SMG that has a bigger clip, does more damage per bullet, and has, you know, an insane amount of DPS, higher than any of the other SMGs, it's just going to get used, right? Weird how that works. It's almost like DPS should be less when it has a bigger clip to offset the fact that it has a huge clip. Nah. By the way, guys, if you don't get the sarcasm or reference, I'm talking about the Tommy gun. And I still think, and then they just removed they reduced 10 rounds in the P90, but the P90 still basically almost has, it's either the same amount of DPS as the normal SMGs. Less, but. And then something like damage per clip actually becomes a factor of what guns you use, because when you're chasing someone down, you're trying to get that last hit on them, it comes down to how many bullets you can fire and your consistent DPS over time. Not consistent, wrong word. Sustained DPS. Can't keep using the same words. That's isn't actually inside the Rift Shards, an illusional based on the surroundings. You don't say. Video games. I don't know. I'm scared. I mentioned this the other night. I'm scared to watch current House of Cards because Spacey did a really good job of acting it, regardless of how horrible he might have been in real life and his personal life. Spacey did an insanely good job, and I don't think I can handle the chick that plays, you know, the Underwood, Claire Underwood. I don't think I can handle her trying to play the role of Spacey in current season, even though it kind of felt like they're going that direction before the whole Spacey thing came out. Like, I don't think I can handle her doing that. It feels too wrong, for lack of a better word. Not that women can't be in power, but acting specifically like a condescending guy that knows everything, knows all the cards, and has, like, fits of rage, and is a very particular role that Spacey fit into, and, like, I don't think I can handle her. It's like, I almost don't want to watch the current season, even though it's out, and I probably am going to watch it. I don't think I want to watch it. Like, I don't think I can handle her playing the role Spacey did. Like, the president that basically took over the world by force, sort of thing, over the house by force. Yeah. Look close, you could see a castle in the rifts. Interesting. Well, probably actually has no real purpose. But they might make it into something. It's kind of like, that's the way lore works, guys. In case people that are like lore fanatics in games absolutely hate them. They're like, no, this can't happen because lore says so. And you're like, yeah, lore is just made up shit whenever they feel like making it up. You know, it's just like as it goes on. So even though like this might have just been a prop they added to these shards just to make it like seem like a far off kingdom, now Epic could just add it to the game, to be perfectly honest. Like you just make it up, well, you go, why not? It's like Kevin. Kind of go with it. Ad-lib the shit out of it. Silenced miniguns, let's see it happen. And it would still be absolutely fucking worthless. Why would you ever... Yeah, it's a silencer on a... It's like having the minigun that has like miniguns spinning around it sort of shit. I think that's from Final Fantasy. Yeah. Yeah, you know... Yeah, having a constant stream of bullets is not a giveaway whatsoever. No, sir. I'm sure silenced will just make it so much better. Always something that should be in the game. Anyways, moving on. Actually, let's talk about Overwatch after, because there's a couple things I want to remark about Overwatch. The game is so broken. It is pretty broken. It is actually kind of funny. Like I mentioned, this kind of growing pains with Fortnite when it came out, because like Epic wasn't really up to par with the modern gaming community. like PC modern gaming community, because they didn't really have anything. They have like, not Polygon, was E1. Their MMO, their failed MOBA. Pl 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 I don't even think it's on the launcher anymore. No, it's not. Paragon. Plah. I got the P right. Paragon. Like, they didn't really have a game before Paragon. When they're doing their due. Like, they didn't really have anything after the Unreal series. It kind of just fell to the wayside. Even though they're still producing their engine, they just weren't really making games. They're just doing their engine stuff, and then occasionally they make a little game along the way. However, after Paragon and then Fortnite, you know, they had to kick things into high gear because they actually had to appease a company, which is generally something only big names were familiar. Big names that have multiplayer games are familiar with, like DICE, Blizzard. Blizzard kind of Overwatch. Blizzard's pretty good at thinking stuff out and then executing stuff, but they don't really adapt very well. But then also other game companies like Daybreak Games had to deal with it, and they never really got up to par. They never really got up to speed. They ran out of money or whatever. They ran out of money, and then they kind of lost the momentum. Even though they had a lot of time where just like PlanetSide 2 was big, and then H1Z1 was really big for a while. Like, they had like 2 years there before basically they ran out of steam. They never really picked up the ball, and currently Epic with Fortnite definitely picked up the ball and they ran with it. They're having a pretty good run with Fortnite, and I think they're doing a really good job of it. I'm a fan of Epic's development cycle, as I mentioned multiple times. It's very, very rare for a game company to be that on top of what they're doing and constantly changing things up and not just getting stuck in a certain way of thinking or a line of thinking, and not super pandering to the gaming community that plays their game either. However, they've started to do that. With Season 5, for instance, they took out the SMGs and they added, because everyone bitches about Bloom still, even though it's kind of a meme at this point, because I assume people know what they're doing if they aren't waiting for the crosshair to come together, waiting for the one-shot accuracy, and then they bitch about Bloom when they play the RNG game, and then they bitch about it. You assume they know what they're doing, but, addicts, I assume, know what they're doing too when they're addicted. But anyways, like, they add stuff like the AK-47 to the game, which doesn't make sense, because the guns that were 100% accurate, like a sniper rifle, or let's say scoped assault rifle, basically do what that gun does, only they don't have the DPS, they don't have if you look at the mechanics on like the scoped assault rifle versus the AK, you're like, why? Just why? I guess the scoped assault rifle has a zoom, but why? Yeah, you basically just absolutely obsoleted the gun. So, I mean, Epic doesn't do the best balancing job in the world. They tend to change stuff, but like, if big streamers had their way, every gun would be 100% accurate, and everything would be about a skill shot, headshot, no matter what, and they wouldn't ever lose, regardless of the fact that they could get shot and die. Like I mentioned, there's a big thing where like streamers don't even notice that there's a problem with building and how they can become invulnerable in a 1x1 just by spam building fast enough, unless someone comes along with a low enough ping. They basically just become immune to damage until they run out of mats, which usually just equates to the other person outside the wall either getting bored and leaving, or someone coming along and killing them. not the way a game should play out, but it's the way that currently plays out in Fortnite. Not that building shouldn't be a thing, but there should be limitations on your invulnerability, you know, and it's not something you can do with a high ping either. That's something only low ping fucks can do. If I try doing that, I'll get shot 3 times probably between each piece going down, regardless of me holding down the button or spamming it as fast as seemingly possible. I'll die after about 2 panels break. Or my panel will get replaced, and then I will die from a shotgun before I see the window edit go through. And if you're a low ping fuck, that's the only way you can replace panels is if you're a low ping fuck too. I've tried doing it, and you don't do it. You can make a macro, and you still wouldn't be able to do it because how fast you build is based off your latency, once again. So, you're at limitations of that. As I mentioned, Fortnite has lots of issues with ping advantage, low ping advantage. But not really seeing that in Black Ops. Black Ops is more of a traditional game, so even when I'm playing at 90 ms or playing at 40 ms, it doesn't really seem to make that much of a difference, but I'm still new to the game, so I'll have to wait and see on that. But anyways, Black Ops on the other hand is new. They're new to the game. They mainly just made console, and the baseline, the bar, regardless of what you think about consoles, is much, much lower. Like, one of the reasons consoleization happened in the O's is because everyone thought that no one plays PC games, which is absolutely fucking wrong. But on top of it, it's lazy developers. Developers just getting away with shit and then not fixing their stuff because it takes work, time, and of course money. At the end of the day, that big moolah, hiring people to actually take care of shit. Like this guy, like they aren't even adding up points properly. So this is what this whole post is about guns not, points not being added up properly, which is apparently something that console players don't either notice or make a big deal about. I don't know if this isn't console. There's X there for his medkit key. Anyways, trying to add up points, but console players just have a lower baseline, or they don't have a voice where they all get together and bitch about something. Which is actually, regardless of what you think about, just move on. You know, if you don't like it, just move on. Sort of ideology is fucking stupid as shit. That's absolutely fucking stupid. Just move. Just move on. Don't bitch about it. Which is, you gotta talk about it so it gets changed. There has to be a 6,000 upvoted over and over again to drag Treyarch's name through the mud because they make shit video games before, maybe they'll stop, they'll stop calling me that. I'm not a shit game developer. Why do you guys keep saying that? But you have to drag them through the mud over and over again before that finally happens, because that's basically capitalism in a nutshell. It's like doing shit like this and then encouraging people to either buy their games or not buy their games, and then having people rant about it because they do hear it, which is also why video game developers sometimes need to separate themselves from the community, because if you have video game developers on here just raging to these guys that are raging at them, that's not productive, which is why you need a PR team as a buffer. However, stuff like this doesn't really have an excuse at the end of the day when stuff like this still happens. Like, when we're playing Blackout, and you can start the game with 50 extra health if you have a big med kit. That's kind of a big deal. Or you can heal while firing your gun. That's also a really big deal. Like, kind of an exploit. Maybe you should fix it. Maybe you should fix that, because that fucks your game up. At the end of the day, Epic was on top of fixing stuff, and Treyarch has just used to be making these console pieces of shit, in the PC port that no one really gives a shit about, and now they got some traction with Blackout, and as such, with the Battle Royale, they're being held to higher standards. They can't just shit out their next console, piece of shit game. I keep saying shit because it's pretty representative of what's going on here. They can't just shit it out, even though there's some things they've done well. Like, they have to keep fixing their stuff. They want the money bag, they want the money train like Epic has. They have to keep going to town with fixing stuff. And PUBG, with Bluehole, kind of did stuff, but like they weren't really trained developers. Not that's the wrong wording. They didn't make their own engine. They didn't do their own engine. They didn't have the talent in-house to do that. So at the end of the day, they can only fix so much, and their programmers are basically only so experienced. And they never, even though PUBG is another example of a game company where the company never really grew to their basically fishbowl that they got put into. They never kept growing until like they could kind of hold their standing, and they lost it because of that. like, you know, you have a company like Treyarch, which is not unfamiliar with Call of Duty games and is a long-term developer, and they're being held to a high standard now, and they have to have programmers, and they need to grow to their fishbowl. Treyarch needs to grow to the size of their fishbowl here to hold a candle to companies like Epic, where they're doing their work. Although Epic, which unfortunately has not got enough publicity about like low ping fuckery, where low ping is a huge advantage in their games, unfortunately, because if they did, there'd probably be more emphasis and light a fire under the one guy that's actually trying to implement multiple servers in the US, besides East Coast, West Coast, because there's an entire fucking central area that's missing servers. And on top of it, even then, people with low pings just like can build faster. They can just do stuff faster. They have better hit registration. They build faster. Like you can't keep up with future men, and that's kind of a problem too. But like I said, it takes months. It takes months and months for Epic, or not Epic, for Reddit to kind of get up to snuff and people to get on the right page as far as all the issues, because that's social media in general, before people realize there's a problem, and then they look at their own game and they compare and contrast what's happening to them in their own game, right? And they're like, huh, you know, that guy wasn't actually looking the right way. Maybe, you know, when they actually pay attention, or they go back and look through the replays, all the replays aren't telling, because there's literally a difference between a replay and what you see on your screen. Unfortunately, we went back and did that, which is when I turned off my replays in Fortnite, because there's no point in having replays on if you can't actually see what's actually really going on. And we went back and looked at my actual footage on Twitch and then compared it to the replay, and there's differences. And I died because of what happens on my screen, not what happens in a replay and what the computer sees, you know? At the end of the day, I die. What I can see is what happens to me and how I die. It's not whatever virtual world the computer lives in and its matrix, you know, I can't see that. It doesn't matter to me. I'm only a fleshy meatbag sitting here just getting things through my eyeballs, and if it doesn't happen in my eyeballs, you know, I can't react to it. I can't deal with it. Generally speaking, I mean, you can feel some things out in game. That's kind of its own little topic about gaming sense in general, like being aware of what's going on around you and being able to ride the coding line, so to speak, kind of the coding wave of what's going on around you. Ride the matrix, I guess, is the best way of surf the matrix in a game. Finding things that you can do to actually help you along, even though it's not the way the game's programmed. And I'm not talking specifically about exploits. For instance, vaulting in Black Ops almost always will get you killed, but you can find the exact right spot to jump in so you won't vault. There's vaulting in not Call of Duty, Battlefield. In Battlefield 2, and if you find exactly the right time to jump, you can actually jump, not vault, and then land on top of what you're doing, but you have to hit it exactly perfectly. It's probably not pixel perfect, but it's one of those things where you have to basically feel things out in the game, and it's not intuitive, and it's not something they teach you, and it's probably not something a lot of people know. However, it's an advantage that you can gain through playing the system, through playing the game and becoming familiar with what's happening and how game mechanics work. That's just one thing I was talking about last night, was with the vaulting system and how horrible it is in the game. Where I wish there was a different key for vaulting compared to jumping. But anyways, in a game like this, like, Treyarch needs to come up to par, and we're basically harping on Epic because Epic still has the same fucking 4 AWS servers in the US since the game launched. And while it works, as I mentioned, AWS servers work for web pages. Games are latency sensitive. Games are very latency sensitive. That's a whole. It's not bandwidth. It's latency. It's about fast as possible. It's not about like how much you can do. It's about how fast you can do it. And there can be some, you know, comparisons you can draw where it's about both in the case of video game development, because you need to be able to pack so many servers onto virtual servers and, you know, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, like, when I die because I have a 40 ms ping because someone could build faster than me, that's grating. And I notice stuff like that because I'm not like a normal pleb that plays games. I mean, there's other people that notice it too. It's not just me. Like, it's like stepping up in the matrix, so to speak, when you notice shit like that happening to you. And then, like, your shots don't register. Like, you shoot someone and then you die like a quarter second later and your last shot doesn't count. Another example, once again, where someone winning with the matrix. Like, I can't compete with that, and the only way to compete with that is with normalizing pings, better netcode in general, but, like, it's not really better, it's like looser netcode. It is like where you start comparing timestamps, and then you'll have other people die back in time, basically what happens to me. Only in Epic's case, with their games, it seems as though it always prioritizes someone with the lowest ping, regardless of timestamps. We're in a game with like Fortnite, a more Black Ops, a more traditional first-person shooter experience, it tends to base it more heavily on the timestamp, which means I have a fighting chance because it's whatever I see on my screen, even though it might be desynced from someone with a lower ping, which is always going to be desync because that's the way life works, because it's time dilation, because it's movement prediction, because you're trying to keep up with the fact that your computers are not perfectly synced together because they can't be because of latency. Look at the stamps on the kill feed, and it won't always be about latency. Same thing with probably one of the best netcode is Battlefield, even if it's not a great game. Their technology is great. Their netcode is fucking great. When I was playing Battlefront hardcore, I had almost no problems with the netcode in it. Battlefield 5, on the other hand, didn't really enjoy playing, so I didn't play that much of it. But Battlefront, no problems with netcode. Relatively no problems with netcode. Relatively few. But anyways, Epic still has not put more servers into the game. Epic still has not revamped their engine. I mentioned this, I've talked about this before, is like, we watched the GDC, I think it was, where Epic had a demo of a sound guy. The one sound engineer, and then he had a producer or something like that, who was another guy that was working with the sound engineer. They had 2 employees at the beginning of 2017 for sound engineering. Not talking about the people that put their little fucking paw prints and cat litter and make all sorts of sounds. We're talking about the people that actually program the engine and do work on the sound engine. They had 2 people. And they weren't working on HRTF. They're just working on basically implementations, ways to get sounds into the game. They weren't working on things like, actually Doppler, I think, was on the board that we heard about. But they weren't going out of their way to, implement things like HRTF, like stuff that matters to gamers, like Z-axis, basically locations of sounds in the game itself. They weren't working on that, and that was they were just working on stuff that helps developers, like ways to implement sounds or making sounds easier where they won't have to pre-process the sound outside of the game, and they can just add wah-wah effects to it inside the game, like sound filters, but not stuff like hardware acceleration for sound, so you can get more sound channels going on. And you can do something like that. It's not a creative sound card. You can do that with things like True Audio, which is for AMD made it, but it's an open library and it works in OpenCL. So you can do it on AMD or NVIDIA GPUs, and you can use another GPU to accelerate sound. Once again, another thing that's kind of fallen by the wayside, like a lot of things in video game development, if there isn't not only a demand for it for video game developers doing it, video game developers doing it well, so it's publicized and not transparent, visible. It's not visible to the public or the community demanding it. It just falls by the wayside, and good audio is something that fell by the wayside. It just, in the O's during consolidation, when EAX went under, and I've talked about this multiple times, when EAX went under, basically it took good sound with it, is what happened, video game sound, and I'm not talking about the guy taking his little fucking stampers in the cat litter making sounds. I'm not talking about those guys. I'm not talking about the sound designers, the people making the sounds. I'm talking about the sound engineers, and it's become a lost art form where game engines just haven't done it. The sound engine in Unreal 3 was better than the Unreal 4 engine. I think we're on Unreal 4 now. The sound, they had actual hardware acceleration. They had like HRTF back then. They actually implemented EAX, which included its own libraries and stuff like that for spatialized sound and environmental sound. And they had their own little kit that they could use, game developers could use, and they could implement in their own games, regardless of whether or not you think it's right that they had their own personal library, that you can only have if you have an EAX or a creative sound card, regardless of whether or not you think that's true, it existed, and it was a tool that developers could use, and now they're gone. And pre-built monstrosities like the Unreal 4 engine just doesn't have it anymore, or they have a plugin where they have to use it and it's half-assed. And it just leads to, obviously, the games being just not having it because the people with the know-how, with the real thinkers, with the, able to do calculus or whatever in their head, I don't fucking know. The advanced mathematics, not just people that can, code mods. I can code a mod. Not just people that can basically mod a game engine. I can do that and put assets into it. I can do that once again. People that actually can make a game engine need to be able to do this stuff. They need to do this stuff so we as gamers can get it. And they haven't been doing that. Epic, like I mentioned before, when you actually look at their back end, even though they've done a stellar job with Fortnite, with keeping the content up to date and with updating content, with keeping things fresh and new assets added to the game constantly, and new different things going on, there's no 3D sound in the game. There's no HRTF in the game. Very important. And then once again, just they haven't added another provider. They're still using AWS. They haven't added Azure or whatever kind of third-party compute cloud service. They haven't added it. So at the end of the day, I'm still being put onto a 40 ms server in a game that's very much about latency, and that gets me killed. And I rage, and then I talk about it for hours on end. Anyways, at the end of the day, even though Epic's done a stellar job, they still got these kind of nicks in their armor, and like only like people like me apparently are aware of them. Like maybe I'm one of the few people that actually talks about it, but it's something that very much exists in their game engine. Is like you can just look, even if you don't believe me, you can just look based on how streamers are sorted on Twitch. Basically, all the best streamers, the best game, not best streamers, that includes entertainers, the highest population streams are generally the ones that perform the best in pugs, like just your average match, and that's largely related to their latency. Just look at their latency indicator at the top of their screen. Which is unfortunate for me because I don't have that. So the year I spent playing Fortnite, I didn't play for a year. 10 months I played Fortnite for. Basically, I managed to not grow my stream at all, and people think you're crazy when you talk about latency and you die into it. The amount of shit I had to put up and down in my channel, and you just sit there because people want to watch people slay, and you can't slay without a low ping. Like, you can only do so much of it, and then you'll run into a low ping fuck, and you just get your face punched in. That's just the way it goes. In a game like Fortnite, that's all about latency. So, you're just gonna eventually run into the handful of people in the game that have a low ping. Like the two guys in the game that have a low ping, and one of them is going to be alive, and you're just going to be at a huge disadvantage. And if they're good, which a lot of people are good nowadays, you just get pooped on. So they take a hot, steaming dump on your chest, and maybe you'll even get trap killed. And that's the way it goes. So, like, Treyarch needs to grow. They need to, if they want to maintain their momentum they have going with Black Ops, they're going to need to grow to the size of their fishbowl. That was the moral of the story here, and they haven't done that yet. Like I said, for instance, being able to bandage while you're shooting your gun. Yeah, no, I don't know. No, not being able to do like math properly and like add points like this post is showing off here. No. Maybe it works in Councilville where everyone's just, I don't care what goes on in this game, it's fine. Derp, I'm just gonna wander around and get kills, you know? And at the end of the day, I'm gonna smoke a bowl, and that'll be the end of that. Not that there's anything wrong with smoking marijuana, but, you know, the amount of shits they give is much less than PC players that are hardcore, and if you want to maintain, like, the community that, you know, the driving force for your game, you're gonna have to step up your game. You're gonna have to grow to the size of your fishbowl. You're gonna have to fix these problems. These are pretty blatantly obvious. If you want to know a streamer that's doing the healing thing while firing Shroud is, so if you don't believe me, go watch his stream and watch him set off medkits while he's firing his gun. That's pretty straightforward. Rocket League has some replay bullshit. Yeah, it's not uncommon for other games to be desynced. So the way it works is I'm pretty sure when you're watching a demo, it's just like it doesn't always include the movement prediction. And it's basically as if the players have a ping of 0, so like a lot of the things you actually see happen in your game, it won't replicate in the demo, specifically because it's operating on a ping of 0, and it's not like what your characters look like at their latency, which makes things look really weird. And possibly means that, for instance, it's kind of procedural. The way netcode works is procedural, meaning you're not going to get the same repeatable experience over and over again, because it does assumptions basically on players' positions and how your bullets are going to interact with them. It doesn't always work properly, so when you watch a replay, you're basically watching things go back in time, is basically what's going on. Probably one of the best replay systems is in Overwatch. The kill cams in Overwatch are pretty spot on. Very, very close to being spot on. But otherwise, moving on. Petition to make the crash say supplies motherfucker when he drops the salt pack. Okay. This is insane. The story of Call of No One Cares and how Treyarch is actually evil. Basically, product tester got fired for an HR mistake. Cool. And begging on Treyarch. Tension was high. HR fired him. They didn't manage the situation very well. None of these will be your 99 out of 100 headshots. Good. Okay. Alright, moving on. Not really much to cover on Black Ops. Black Ops is a fledgling game. It's still growing, and it'll probably take a while before the Reddits become a place that's actually worth covering, but we'll get there eventually. Let's take a peek here at Overwatch. Overwatch Reddits. This is why shadow details settings are on medium in the game. Picture of someone's shadow just walking out. No. One time where shadows are actually useful. Yay. And then there's all those other times where he just makes you lose visibility. Cool. Niche case scenarios, guys. Most clutch play I've ever made. And a dunk. Oh, I thought maybe she'd actually do something there at the end, but she didn't. She just died. How to fix the world. Wow, she looks so miserable too. Like, look at this. Looks absolutely fucking miserable as shit. Doesn't even laugh at it. I would have thought that's fucking hilarious. Doesn't even laugh at her own joke. I guess she has 2 viewers. I see this up here in the top left now. Yeah, that's the life when you have no viewership starting out. This is absolutely fucking hilarious. Good for her. 12k upvotes on Reddit. She probably has more people watching her now. So this is the story that I wanted to look at tonight. Let's see here. Which is Overwatch is getting this started out as Overwatch is getting a full reinstall, which I knew. Which is what I knew. Overwatch's next big patch is going to be a reinstall, and the reinstall is because they're updating a lot of things. And now the reinstall patch is turning into a remaster patch, which means there's going to be a lot of updated assets in Overwatch. In addition to that, they are redoing a lot of the back-end things. So, like, as far as, like, gameplay experience, Blizzard occasionally does stuff like this. They overhaul their engine, and it's actually pretty cool when it happens. We may actually play Overwatch in the future here, meaning simply because the experience that you get from playing Overwatch might just be vastly different after a patch like this. Not just because the assets are different, you know, the eye candy is always nice and appreciative, right? Everyone loves eye candy. But rather because they're like basically overhauling their engine. They're overhauling their game, which is why it requires a full reinstall. And at first, it just seemed like something they're doing because they're cleaning up garbage in the back end. And now they're actually, like, it seems an awful lot like they just basically, this is like 2.0 of their engine release, which is actually a pretty big deal. This is actually a pretty big deal. Blizzard chalks the inconvenience up to under-the-hood changes that go deeper than just a fresh coat of paint. The next major patch will have some pretty fundamental changes to the game client. Kotaku. The number of backend changes we're putting in is substantial enough that we can't just patch over the current content efficiently. As a result, the next patch will come out. Client will fully reinstall itself to handle these changes. We know this isn't ideal for everyone on meter connection, so hopefully this announcement will help prepare you for this coming update. This is kind of the weird thing, is like, you know, game companies nowadays take whatever they can get with a grain of salt, right? Like, they want whatever sort of publicity they want. And Blizzard is no exception, meaning they have, they publicize fucking everything. But then occasionally, like, remember how we were talking about Epic? I went on this, like, 30-minute tangent about how Epic, even though they've done a really good job with the front end of a game like Fortnite, and they're still making updates to the back end, they still have not managed to add another game service or server provider to their system. At the most basic level, they have not been able to provide central servers for their game client, and that's a pretty big deal. You shouldn't have people in the U.S. There's 4 servers in Europe, and Europe is like half the size of the U.S. Like, there shouldn't just be 4 servers, and they're all basically on the east or west coast. There's, like, if it was a line across the U.S., it would make more sense, but it's not. It's literally like this. It's like 2 bars. It's like parallel. You got Virginia and Ohio, which are this little bit better, but on the west coast, you have Oregon and California, which is kind of a big deal. And in the center of the U.S., you got this giant fucking hulking dead area. And as I mentioned before, like with game companies where Fortnite, where they're doing a really good job of like public issues and like adding new content, updating game balance. They're going head first into the competitive scene with skirmishes, and every skirmish seems to be getting better as far as production quality, and they're like ironing things out. Like their back end is still an issue, and you notice it if you're actually pretty in tune with the Matrix, for lack of a better word. Like if you're actually not playing at 10 ms, you're gonna fucking sit at the bottom of the viewer list on Fortnite because you aren't slaying, relatively speaking, unless you're really good at some particular niche and then you advertise it constantly. Generally speaking, you're just not going to do as well as other people. And if you have 2 people who have the same latency or same skill, and then one person's playing at 10 ms and the other person's playing 40, 10 ms guy is just going to shit out the other guy like 9 times out of 10, and he's just going to lose unless this guy ends up in a poor situation and gets third party or something, which they rage about all the time on the low ping streams. People with low pings, like this John Doe over here is just gonna get shit on by John Doe B, just because it's Fortnite and they haven't really done a good job with keeping up with their back end. They'll optimize it, they'll rebuild it for consoles because there's more money, and mobile because there's more money there. And I don't want to make this seem all about money, because they've done changes that aren't all about money. However, at the end of the day, like just updating their back end, their client, like I've bitched about low latency advantage for months, basically while I was playing it. I still played it even though I knew I was getting the short end of the stick. And I still played it, and then I eventually quit at the end of August or beginning of August. I eventually quit and basically lost all motivation to play games, because that really, like when you just kind of just figure out, just like you just get shit on constantly, and like you the drive, like I'm very driven to get better at things, and I can't because the game's just fucking me. It's a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big blow. Anyways, I started streaming, did a lot of single player games. It was a while before I covered Reddits. And then, back to where we are now. And Black Ops came out, so I have something different to play, even if it's not the exact experience I want. And I actually enjoy playing I enjoy playing Fortnite more, at the end of the day. I can't have my pie and eat it too. I can't have the cake and the frosting. Get the cake or the frosting, so. But just going back here once again to Blizzard being a more classical company, and while they do execute things, they do a pretty good job of weighing and balancing where they need to put their efforts. And you just get angry about things like Diablo Mobile, and I don't know why people are angry about that, because it makes money. And Fortnite, Epic did things like mobile for their games, so why can't Blizzard do that too? Different crop of people with Blizzard games. And then you got games like World of Warcraft, where they just basically, BFA was just Legion with worse stuff in it. I don't know what they're doing there. And that's like one of those games that's kind of becoming crusted, and it's not a very modernized part of the company, where they really need to make like a Blizzard 2.0, and they need to overhaul a lot of the things in the game. They need to give the game a real big overhaul. They've just been maintaining it more or less, occasionally adding new technology like DX12. Which doesn't work worth a shit, but it's still available to them. But anyways, you got Overwatch is definitely a more modern part of the company. It's their more modern IP. Definitely went out of their way to put talent on it. And this right here, this isn't something they're actively publicizing, but it definitely seems like they're overhauling the game. And they didn't really go into particulars about what they're overhauling. And this is from a Kotaku exclusive with Blizzard. And this is the first time that you hear about remastering content, basically them redoing old bits and pieces that look bad in the game and making it look nicer. This isn't remaster or redoing heroes. Like, it's not reworking heroes. This isn't game balance. But at the end of the day, depending on how the client deals with hit registration, with net code, with optimizations in the games, little stutters and hiccups can vastly change your playing experience in the game. As I mentioned before, with Epic, with servers, and with latency, even at the end of the day in Blizzard games, even though they aren't changing the heroes, and this isn't a game balance patch, it could have widespread implications on how the game feels. Obviously, I'm kind of not synopsis. I'm kind of expanding on what we're seeing here because they aren't saying particularly that where they're changing their netcode and stuff, but it sounds like there's a lot of optimizations and changes in the game, which is actually, to me, is actually very exciting. Like, they add new maps to the game, I'm like, yay. They add a new hero, I'm like, yay, that's pretty cool. And when they redo, like, netcode, and when they actually, like, one of the coolest things I saw was where DICE basically stripped their netcode out of Battlefield 4, I think it was, and remade the wheel because they knew it sucked. That's a lot of effort, and, like, me as a person, like, I really, like, even though I don't play MOBAs, I really appreciate what Riot does with their games, for instance. They're really good at that. And you can tell, like, when it's actually something that's going to be very meaningful into the future, because DICE, you know, their engine, their Frostbite engine is a huge asset to them. It actually pays. And I've talked about this before with Epic, with the Fortnite engine, or now with Fortnite engine, with the Unreal engine, even if at the end of the day, you know, you're like, who is this going to apply to? This doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, you can say your Unreal 4 engine now has access, like they can bake in providers other than AWS. So maybe at the end of the day, you know, they have some sort of agreement with Amazon, which is why they're like their sole provider. You know, I definitely think you can add other providers for like cloud compute to the engine. I'm not sure on that, but like the baked in AWS, their baked in client is AWS. Like the provider is AWS, and that's what they use, and that's one of the reasons there's only 4 servers in NA, and why I've talked about it extensively. So even if you can't, I'll go, oh, Fortnite, you know, like you can sell this shit to like CEOs. Is like it raises it makes your portfolio better. Like with DICE, where they redid their netcode, even though it's Battlefield 4, they know they're going to have more Battlefield games in the future, and they know there's going to be things like Battlefront on the horizon and other games that are going to use their IP. Or not their IP, their engine, their assets, their technical assets. So even with the Unreal Engine, with Fortnite, you can say, oh, how many people is this going to apply to? It's not just Fortnite, it's not just me. You're also talking about everyone that wants to make a game for your engine, right? Everyone that wants to use your engine. And maybe they can get better hosting costs with Microsoft Azure or Oracle or with Google. At the end of the day, you're basically making your engine better, which is going to make more people want your engine. And even though basically there's like they have no competition, Epic has almost no competition for basically people looking for engines. That's still something they can add. They can put that rubber stamp on their game engine and talk about it. And, you know, I don't know what the kind of implications of, like, actually having, not implications, the peculiarities of actually adding extra providers. So it could be something super in-depth, but it could also be something like sound, where they have 2 guys working on it, and they have, like, you know, 300 people working on art assets, and they have 2 people working on their fucking engine for their netcode, and you're like, or their sound engine. That's another one too, is like when you have HRTF, when you can actually add meaningful things to gamers to your engine. That's important. And Blizzard understands this. DICE understands this. Where's Epic? Where's Epic understanding this? You know, you can make it very usable for developers, but gamers demand things from their games, from their engine, especially PC gamers, especially high-end PC gamers, especially competitive PC gamers, where they want good experiences from their games. You play fucking Battlefield 5, even though the game wasn't that great, like it ran, it was like fucking like silk. It ran fucking smooth as shit. The hero registration is just really good together, you know, to boot. And like you look at the scoreboard, and even if their game, like the game isn't that great, like technically speaking, that engine is smooth as shit. Although it's kind of specific to EA, and EA locks down all their technology, unfortunately. So even though they got this nice engine, you know, reselling it to people, they could actually they could compete with Epic. They could compete with the Unreal Engine, but as far as I know, the Frostbite engine is not very um, amicable. Is that the term I'm looking for? It's not very easy to get your hands on. It's not very easy to use, which is kind of weird considering that's like one of the best assets from DICE is their engine. Like, it's just limited to DICE or EA games, and most EA games don't have anything to do with the Frostbite engine or are massive multiplayer games, you know. First-person shooter multiplayer games. So, you know, a lot of their, it's like pearls before swine, so to speak. Perfume on a pig. No, pearls before swine, not perfume on a pig. Perfume on a pig is like if you dress something up and it's the same shit, different story. Like pearls before swine, you know, they don't know what they have, sort of thing. But that's EA, and EA is a monstrosity of its own right. But at the end of the day, like, they still have, like, this fucking kick-ass engine, and Overwatch has this really fucking amazing engine. And StarCraft engine, I don't know what the name of their StarCraft engine is, but they're using it in multiple games. HOTS, and it will be in the Warcraft 3 Remastered, is 100% the StarCraft engine. And it works really good, and they can use it for multiple different parts of their game company. And the Unreal Engine, while they've made it better, there's still these basic fundamental things that are kind of broken with it that they need to fix. And they haven't done it, and I've talked about it. And at the beginning of August, they talked about how they're going to do sub-region matchmaking, and they implemented that in Asia, and then they didn't do anything else with it. And then they talked about adding new servers. They added like one to Asia, and then they didn't do anything with it. You know, and at what point are they going to, that's 3 months ago, is when there is, like, they data mined out new servers in like a beta portion of the client. It was data mined out of it, which is the only reason I know exists, because Epic never formally announced them. There's like new NA servers, and then they just didn't do anything with it. Like, that's the like, even though everything else in Fortnite moves so fast, where's the rest of the engine? Like, things people want, like HRTF, where's that? Like, you know, if you have one good sound guy, look for the fucking guys that they had working on EX. Creative fired a bunch of people. I bet you could find them. Like, people that were actually good with, like, sound cards and, like, with sound in particular, and with hardware acceleration. You know, like, things that actually get me hard, you know. Like, we're talking about, like, even though you don't have, like, the old EAX and you don't have accelerated sound on creative sound cards, you have now GPU accelerated cards, or sound, because graphics have evolved, and it's a giant parallel processing machine, you know, a GPU, a compute engine in your computer, like, for physics. And even though physics kind of just, like, another thing, like, you had one company leading the charge, and then NVIDIA bought Agia, and then just, like, turned into a droopy dick. And you had Creative leading the charge with EAX, you know, trumpeting and holding their banner high, running into battle, talking about the advantages, and, you know, adding to their arsenal. And then Microsoft just stuck their foot out and tripped them by just basically pulling the rug out as far as hardware acceleration goes in Windows. And they had to remake the wheel, and then Creative dropped the ball on that, and then Creative just turned into just another Realtek, basically. With AMD and with NVIDIA, especially with their cache injections from crypto, their crypto cache injections, as you guys know. You know, AMD especially is just making some really, really cool headway in just weird things they're doing. NVIDIA's always been a little bit more traditional with what they're doing, and now they're doing RTX, which is kind of pointless in my opinion, simply because the visual differences and the amount of resources required to do RTX is fucking stupid, and it's a waste. But putting that aside, you have like AMD's doing stuff, and G-Sync and FreeSync are pretty cool. But you have AMD, and they did True Audio, which garnered almost no interest and no traction, which is hardware accelerated audio. Which, you know, is kind of one of those things where people, if you look at benchmarks way back in the day for Creative's games with EAX and hardware acceleration over audio channels, so the weird thing about that is, like, the amount of difference that hardware acceleration is going to make on sound channels, which is the number of sounds that are operating at the same time in your game, the number of actual sounds operating in your game, depends on how much is going on around you. And of course, if you're playing a game that's not a multiplayer game, you're playing a single player game with someone walking around or whatever, there's like 5 sounds. But when your game gets immensely more complex, get into esports, you have multiple characters doing multiple different things. MMOs with lots of people, and oftentimes they just cull the sound. They just completely remove it from other characters so they don't make sounds. Like in World of Warcraft, you're only hearing your character. More or less, you're only hearing your character, except for some very key specific sounds. That matters more, but it still doesn't matter that much. And then you start getting into things like Overwatch, where every nuance, every sound you hear is extremely, extremely important for figuring out what's going on around you, because your sound environment, like, this is a relic. My speakers are a relic from when I played games in the late 90s and into the O's, when I experienced very good sound in video games. And I talked about it, and this isn't now nostalgia. Like, the experience, I basically have a subpar experience compared to just headphones, because of the way sound design works nowadays. It's, like, there's a lot of contrast between very subtle sounds and very loud sounds, but like the positioning in sounds, like the effects and sounds, the amount of sounds, positional audio speakers were much better for that, for everything, for like a Battlefield experience. I got this specifically because I played Battlefield 2 back in the day. It gave me a lot better experience than just wearing a pair of headphones. And now we're at where we are today, and you have a game like, Overwatch, where every nuance matters, and like you start running into things where you can't render all the sounds, or it actually has an impact on what's happening in your game, because people have a lot of different abilities and a lot of different things are going on around you at the same time. So then they start limiting the amount of sounds, and they start limiting the max distance. And you have games like Battlefield, which is still, once again, a very good candidate for hardware accelerated audio, where you have just a bunch of things going on around you because there's a bunch of people playing the game. And even though I haven't played Battlefield 5, the audio experience in the beta was fucking terrible as shit. Just some sounds didn't play. We sat there and looked at a machine gun, and it was sitting in front of me, and it just wasn't making any sound, even though you can hear it on your screen. Just like some guns weren't making firing sounds and shit like that. I don't know if that's in the retail experience. It is something you kind of have to notice and point out to people, because the game does a really good job of hiding it. However, just a lot of things going on, a lot of people running around you, a lot of people reloading their weapons, changing weapons, putting out deployables. It's the same thing as with Overwatch. You have a lot of sounds, and you need to get this into your mind, and it matters a lot if the number of sound channels that you're rendering. And then we look at the furthest end, which would be an MMO first-person shooter, something like PlanetSide, which is dead in the water. But the opposite end of that is now Fortnite, where with Fortnite you have fuck tons of things that are happening around you, all very important, because you have 5 people, especially with the glider redeploy, you have 5 people converging on your position, and you need to be able to hear everything that's happening around you. You need to hear the reloads, you need to hear where someone is in a multi-tiered structure, you need to hear where they are, you need to hear how far they are behind stuff, so obfuscation, so being able to hear muffled sounds. The further behind walls people are, behind more and more walls, is going to limit how loud a sound is, right? Stuff like that is very important for learning the soundstage, learning where stuff is around you, and being able to get it into your mind. And then also, being able to react to it. Being able to react to things that are happening around you. And you don't get that with... It's something like the amount of sound channels there in Fortnite is something really low. It's like 8 or something. It feels like that sometimes, where it'll just start culling the sounds, because the more sounds that are rendering, more impact it'll have on your processor. And back in the day, where EAX was big, you didn't have all these super complicated games that you have today. Battlefield was basically the pinnacle. Tribes was a pretty big game, but even then, Tribes is more sprawling than having things all happening in close quarters around you. Battlefield is probably, once again, a stellar example of that. And at the end of the day, like, they don't have this. They don't have it in games. They don't have accelerated audio in games, even though, like, Fortnite is, once again, a case, definitely a case you could use for accelerated audio. They don't do it. It's not Epic. Epic should be doing stuff like that and adding it to their portfolio and talking about it and leading the industry, because they can, and because they have a big name, and because they actually, like, I'm a big proponent of, like, if you have the ability to help society, you should probably do it. And I don't mean it being philanthropist. You can do it and make money. I don't think definitely should make money, because it encourages people to do the same thing, and then they make money too, right? Monetary reward is important. But like Epic has, and Blizzard should have been able to do this. Valve also just sits there on their they're like Apple, just sits there on their laurels and counts their money, and Valve doesn't fucking do anything. And they like, it's a utopia that developers go and retire to, where they just work on whatever project they want, and basically nothing comes out of the company. Dota 2, besides Dota 2, and Dota 2 is just Dota. So, you know, it's not like HOTS, where they kind of like tried to make the game better. It's just Dota. So, you know, it's like Valve just absolutely dropped the ball. I keep saying drop the ball. But they have so much money they could throw at stuff and make things better, and then they just don't. And Blizzard does do some things where they make things better. Once again, the whole conversation spawning from the fact that this might be a patch that just completely, like, they retooled. It's like version 2.0 of their engine they're using for Overwatch. Important. And then you have a company like Epic, where they're just, you know, they have guys out there shoveling money. You know, they just have a trailer, and there's just like money falling from these money printers where their skins are, you know, being printed, and they're just taking a shovel and just shoveling the money into the back of their fucking, you know, trailers, and just like, you know, then their CEOs come down and they get themselves wet with honey and they just roll around in it, you know, and then they go out for lunch. And that's just what they can do, and they can walk around naked because they can pay fines, stuff like that. And, you know, like, stuff like this is like, where is it, Epic? You know, sort of thing. Like, you can do a great job with Fortnite, but I'm a kind of a connoisseur of like video game development, and I want stuff like, I want hardware accelerated audio because I know it can happen. It's existed. This has existed. I know it exists. I'm not crazy. EAX was a thing in like the early O's. It happened, right? It happened. It was a thing. HRTF existed in games at one point. It was a thing. Like, I'm not making this up. And then console players just play with, you know, zero hardware, zero basic audio with headphones, and that was basically their game experience, like Treyarch is dealing with, you know. And the times, there are better things out there, and physics is another rant that I could make about for hours on end, which I'm not going to do tonight. Spent a lot of time actually doing this podcast, and a lot of things to talk about here, mainly just because this gets me fired up. This gives me a hard on, is just talking about video game development, specifically when they're making infrastructure changes, big logistical changes, you know, that affect things, where they actually spend time and money. The programmers spend time and money that isn't otherwise appreciable, because I can appreciate it because I actually look at stuff like this. But, you know, like the average gamer on Twitch, you know, he's like, yeah, I don't really care, you know. Are you gonna add a new Mercy skin anytime soon? I want something with more skin, please. She's my waifu. You know, stuff like that. But like, at the end of the day, like, stuff like this is actually very meaningful, and it actually makes me want to play the game again. And even at the end of the day, this is like going back to yesterday, I think, where we're talking about anti-cheat and how important it is. And if you have cheaters running amok in your game, even if people can't identify them, and even if they don't know they exist, it still impacts the quality of life of every player. And if they can't have fun, they're going to quit. If you can improve your engine, if you can improve the quality of life of people playing your game, it helps them. They're going to play more. They're going to enjoy it more, and they're going to play more, even if they don't know why. They don't know why it's making them want to play their game more. They'll want to play it. Like, if you clean up stuttering and micro stuttering, you clean up, you know, like, what is this with the fucking, like, the game can't add up points properly. You know, at the end of the day, people might not be. Oh, this isn't it. Oh, this look. Hey, look, this post got deleted by Epic, or by Treyarch. Oh, we saw this, guys, and it's gone now. Anyways, going back to this. Good job, PR control. Anyways, going back to this, where just like the game just does not keep track of points properly. Even if this guy actually takes time, he's observant enough where he notices this going on. You know, at the end of the day, people just might not get their amount of airstrikes they thought they're going to get, you know, and they have, even though people aren't very good at keeping track of things, like, in their mind, like, they can't actually visualize this going on, and they still get fucked by it, and it still causes them to lose interest in the game. Like, it's actually important, just like a good scoring system. I actually have a highlight from back in PlanetSide 2 when I talked about the scoring system in PlanetSide 2 and how important it is not just to have it based off kills. Kills is a very, very rudimentary way of scoring people, but like a weighted scoring system is very important for motivating people to try harder in your game. And if you take that away, you take a lot of motivation away from players, and motivation is important. It keeps people playing your game. And it's not just all about carrying in the stick sort of thing, and I guess you could say a good scoring system is kind of like a carry in front of person, but at the end of the day, it's kind of also just weighing and balancing like what they do in the game and how much they feel as though they've done things that matter, right? And Battlefield, for instance, has a weighted scoring system where they weight kills and interactions and, you know, different things that go on, heals, capturing objectives, different things that happen around you, which is more important when you get into a game that is open-ended, not like one person standing at the end of the game like a battle royale. It's more important to a game where there isn't just one person standing at the end of the game, where you have a team of 32 versus 32, right, and 64 players in maps, and like a Battlefield game or PlanetSide where there is no end, and it just keeps going on. Weighted scoring systems are insanely important in order to make people feel as though they're the best, so they can slap their dick around, and everyone can appreciate their dick and go, wow, your score is so big, sort of thing. Because people like that. They like being appreciated for work they're doing, and if you don't reward people for the work, right? Just don't do it, or they lose. They just go a different way. They'll just do whatever makes them the most points or gets them the most kills. Yeah, going back once again to this, just Overwatch, just overhauling, and Epic could do a lot of cool things with their engine, and why don't they? They have the money, need the power. It's another fishbowl that they have to grow to, even if it's an invisible fishbowl that majority gamers won't appreciate. It affects the whole gaming industry, because Epic, even if you look at Fortnite as like not a political, but a visible movement, like there's just people just around the world playing their game. There's people around, game developers around the world using their engine, and that's also a torch that they have to carry. Like, not just console games, but just everyone and their moms using the Unreal Engine. It's important for them to actually make a really great engine. It's not just all about usability for ease of development for game developers. It's also about having things in it that are important to gamers. Even if Joe Blow on Twitch, that's running his Twitch channel, can't appreciate the fishbowl for the engine, some people do, and at the end of the day he'll enjoy his game more if he gets things like HRTF, so he doesn't die in a 4-person build off and he can't make any sound. Like, he has no idea where any of the sounds are coming from. It sounds like there's a guy and he could literally be 5 tiles away in this direction, or he could be 5 tiles away in this direction, the difference here being like a 45-degree arc, and he doesn't know if they're above or below him either. They could be here, or it could be below him, it could be above him. No idea, and he has to use like inferences based off of where the build is, and how many layers there are to the build, and where walls are, and what just happened around him to actually kind of, which I guess you could say is a skill set, but it should really be audio. Like, you can hear, like, up and down is a thing in real life, as well as occlusion, being able to hear behind things, stuff happening behind it, or Doppler effects. There's a lot of little clues in real life, and you can argue that the inferences to learn how to use sound in a video game is its own crude skill set, because it is not the way it should be. And once again, Epic, you should hammer that out. Like, gamers just want an excuse to buy more hardware. I'm not joking about this. Like, if you can repurpose an old piece of hardware, that gets gamers hard. They love that. They're like, oh yeah, that 580, NVIDIA 580 I bought like 4 years ago, I can put it back in my computer and I can run physics better. Oh yeah, I want to fucking do that, They like stuff like that. But in the case, we aren't talking about video game graphics. We're talking about the fact that you can accelerate audio using like true audio. You can use OpenCL and accelerate it on another GPU in the system. Or lo and behold, imagine if graphics were built into a processor. Imagine if your CPU had built-in graphics. I'm sure there's no computer in existence with built-in like an IGP. None. Absolutely none. That's sarcasm, by the way. Like, half the computers in the world have built-in IGPs. More than that, it's like 2/3. Chances are, if you're a gamer and you have an Intel processor, well, you do probably have a built-in IGP. So, like, even those do OCL. Case in point, we can load up a tool like this. We can look at my UHD 630, and we can see here it supports Direct Compute 5.0 and OpenCL. It doesn't support CUDA because NVIDIA is a dick, but it supports OpenCL. So, like, it's not going to be the fastest thing in the world, but you can totally take sounds that the CPU would otherwise need to process at the most basic layer. You can do it on your IGP. Like, stuff like that, and you can have a better game, and you can have your cake and you eat it too. But anyways, moving on past the sound. Sound rants every once in a while get me hot and bothered, because it bugs me that I've been through the O's of video games, and early O's with good sound, and living in the world we are today, which is basically headphones. That top of it, like, it's just very, very basic sound. Do 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 do. My guess is this is about Bob. He's a big, effortlessly charming robo boy, and the game's old foundation can't contain him. I have no idea why Bob, basically move in a straight line, deployable robot, would have anything to do with this. But this is Kotaku, and we aren't here specifically because of their knowledge base, because there's already bots in the game if you ever play against computer AI. But anyways, Blizzard called this a remaster patch, so there's going to be redone assets, not just patches and not just bug fixes, but there's also going to be new assets or characters that are going to have models that are redone. That's generally what remaster is. Improve load times, optimize memory for constrained systems, which are consoles. Reduce hard drive space by using the PS4 versions, fix bugs across mini-maps, which is normal, and make changes to data formats to support future content, so they're actually making usability. 15 clarified this will apply to PC and consoles, but if you download the public test server version of the game on PC, you redownload both. Download with be significantly smaller. If you download the public test server version of the game on PC, your redownload will be significantly smaller. Yes, it's not about Bob after all. Anyways, very cool that Blizzard does stuff like this. I've talked about this. Riot does this too with their game engine. They've done this multiple times over the course of their game's history. As I mentioned, I'm a big fan of Riot and their game development cycle. Never really been attached to League of Legends though, even though I have over 1,000 hours, and I think I got like 2,000 hours in League of Legends before I started streaming. Even though I'm a fan of their game or their work, I don't really like their game. Fortnite's probably one of the first games where I really, really enjoy the game development company and what they're putting into it, and then really enjoyed the game. Unfortunately, but like Riot has been doing stuff like this for a decade now. I think League of Legends came out in like 2007, like close to a decade, and they redo assets, they redo characters, they go back and redo old art assets, their engine, they redo their patching client, their like launch client, they redo everything. And it's important. Game development 2.0, where actually the game is a living, breathing entity. You have to keep doing this. And that. Go back, Rick and Morty. Clickbait. Ninja Fallout 76 stream with Rick and Morty and Logic did not go well. I wonder if this is like, if this was scripted or if this is actually like, you know, like you can put those overlays on top of people where it'll actually just like animate the character like with mocap. The camera. Ah, it is scripted. Rick tried to convince Ninja and Logic to strip off their armor and run around naked, punching everything in response. They just kind of brushed him off. It's kind of weird when you have really, like, a couple people with really huge egos and they never click, because it's like a dominant thing where you just have people and they have to take part in your conversation or you have to take part in their conversation. But if the egos are so big, they never really click together, and then you just have people that just like do really weird things on opposite ends of the spectrum from each other, and they don't really interact even though they're interacting with each other. It's very, very weird, but it's like part of like normal social interaction with human beings in general. Like generally you have someone that's more dominant and you relate to their conversation. Obviously in an ideal world, or even just in normal conversations between friends, you know, the shtick goes back and forth between multiple people. Someone comes up with an idea or a topic to talk about, you talk about that. Someone else comes up with an idea, you talk about that. You know, it goes back and forth. But in like a higher social hierarchy where you have someone that's like kind of the pyramid, the top of the pyramid, and Ninja generally is for gaming, which is why he doesn't play in tournaments anymore, because people start to weigh and balance that against him actually being at the top of this perceived pyramid of like him being the best gamer in the world. You know, then he can't play in tournaments because then it proves he's not the best gamer in the world. Going back to, once again, talking about the advantages of low ping and how you see people with really low latency not always performing very well in tournaments in real life. You know, like you have this kind of like this social hierarchy and like you have two people. I think this is one of the voices from Rick and Morty. Like he's just regarded, you know, as being this like top end figure. Like he probably has people sucking his dick all the time, and you have someone like Ninja, who people are sucking his dick all the time, and then they have to actually talk to each other, and then one person has to give and talk about what the other person is talking about, or vice versa, and then they just basically, you can imagine two dildos being slapped back and forth at each other on their face, and that's what they're doing. But anyways, such a weird moment. Ninja proceeded to talk about somebody who is following them, and Logic talked about his chair. It was kind of the perfect encapsulation of what each person was about and why the stream felt so strange. Say what you will about Ninja's stance on streaming with women and linguistic guffaws, but he's damn good at video games, so of course that's his focus here too. You got Roland trying to perform his hyper-specific brand improv humor, because that's his whole thing, and lastly you got the Logic wondering why he's there. Logic even talk, asked the viewer. General chat has kind of some highlights, lowlights. Nobody asked for this. This is horrid. Basically, a lot of reaction. This canceled my pre-order of this game. Yeah, people pre-ordered or canceled they canceled Fallout 76 not because of shit like this. They canceled it because basically Fallout 76 is it's Fallout only without a story and multiplayer. As if multiplayer in a Fallout game could replace the fact that basically the whole game is story driven. So yeah. Let's say there were a few decent moments. For instance, at one point Morty told Ninja in an extended story about Rick burping under his bed that was bizarre enough to work. So this isn't mocap, this is all scripted, which is unfortunate. It would actually be really cool if they did like mocap with people sitting here actually on the couch and just have like a CG over the top of them. There's a bit about representation among super mutants that landed pretty well, and then you got Logic laughing. But Roland whiffed. He really whiffed. For instance, I've watched the following clip of Rick and Morty bantering about traps 6 times and still couldn't figure out what Roland was going for.
Air traps!
Oh,
There's booby
no.
traps!
Why are you, Morty? Why are you saying traps? Oh, weird.
Trapped. You sound like it was cats in.
Yeah, when you got an accent all of a sudden, Morty.
Oh my
No,
god.
I picked that up because I've been watching a lot of this one show.
Hey, this is CG.
People from Wisconsin on it.
I'm gonna die here.
He's probably talking about Monotech moment. Manitowoc moment with basically a typical redneck guy around here, which is pretty funny if you watch that. Ever since the Breakout Drake stream, it feels like it happened a million years ago. Plays a game with famous people that has become a stream genre unto itself. I'm sure then Bethesda looked at Ninja, a famous rapper, and Rick and Morty, and saw demographic dollar signs. So apparently this other guy is a rapper. And when you're watching shows, when you're watching like personalities on Twitch, like people from YouTube do not always translate well to Twitch because YouTube is kind of a, you know, it's content you can snip and choose from, where people on Twitch have to react in certain ways and have to keep the flow going in conversation and how things are happening around them. If you have people from YouTube, they just kind of, like, they pick and choose what they actually show off, whereas Twitch, you have to always keep going with things. And it just leads, like, this looks like a normal gamer, just doing his thing. He's just sitting on the couch playing games. Trying to do his shtick, and I'm sure that people will just cut it. They'll cut it at the end there, you know, his producer will cut it, and they'll make a nice YouTube video out of it. But, like, if you watch it live, it just doesn't click. Anyways, interesting article. But yeah. Optimization patch by Blizzard. Patch by Kotaku. Download more RAM. Hear that standby list. No one mentioned it. Not about memory speed. Memory speed only matters if you have an IGP and it uses it. Only time it really matters. My favorite part is when you want to spawn with the black screen, you run forward only to find that you've been running into a wall. Yeah. So like a lot of this has to do with streaming textures, especially with people with mechanical hard drives. If you play on an Xbox, especially older Xboxes with antiquated hardware, what they do is they do streaming textures and streaming loading. So when you're loading into the game, it's unloading things and it's going back and forth between your hard drive. An SSD could vastly improve your performance, which is what people used to do, is mod their SSD or mod their console and put an SSD in, because it made things insanely much better. I mean, that's that way for PC anyways, but in console you have low memory and you have a hard drive, which is mechanical, and you have an antiquated CPU and GPU. Newer consoles, especially like the Xbox X and the PlayStation 4 Pro, much better, but at the end of the day, they're dealing with shit like this, and the game has to juggle assets, and like they're doing on mobile. Like Epic had problems with mobile for a while, where they're trying to deal with lower-end phones, which are just vastly inferior to higher-end phones as far as computational and GPU experience, resources, not experience. But just if these guys had SSDs, it would just make that insanely better. If you have low amounts of memory, if you get an SSD, it's so much better. I can only imagine playing Overwatch on consoles, like, because consoles Overwatch is such a fast-paced experience. End up with people just running around with just like stuff that just auto clicks like a turret or something, and they just own everyone. Balancing on console is completely different than balancing on PC, especially for a game like Overwatch. And they should always be balanced differently, but they didn't do that. They tried to balance them both the same. Bad idea. Yeah. Alrighty, guys. We'll play some games. I spent fucking 3 hours tonight just talking about video game development and things happening. But we'll actually play a game or two here. I want to get dinner. Here, and I spent a lot of time, 3 hours, 15 minutes already, and all I've been doing is talking, so we'll actually play games. Oh, let me check your server, Epic. 42 MS. It hasn't changed at all.